Chapter 2903. Fulu, you're possessed. You're too right, too unimaginable. Hearing this, Ziming's face turned cold. She put away her previous gentleness and scolded. Who gave you the guts to say such disrespectful words? If not for the fact that you've been serving Zai and are a loyal servant, I would have thrown you into prison today and taken your life. Humph, with this old servant's age, why would I be afraid of prison? Even if Miss wants this old servant's life right now, this old servant won't even frown. Fu Lu didn't care about anything else and shouted, this old servant will risk my life to speak up for young Master Zai. I will also speak out about the things that many people in Huta village are angry about but don't dare to speak out. I will let others know that our Huta village is also wise. Shut up. Do you really think I don't dare to touch you? Ziming was furious. If you dare to touch young Master Zai, then you naturally dare to kill this old servant. Fu Lu shouted, throwing caution to the wind. You wait. Quickly seal this old man's mouth and drag him out. Ziming pointed at the guards beside her and said, now that Zai's sacrificial period has just passed, let him spout nonsense here. The other shaman villages still have elders here. If they hear this, wouldn't it be a great loss to our Huta village's dignity? Yes, a few attendants hurried forward and restrained Fu Lu. Fu Lu struggled, his face flushed red. Unfortunately, he couldn't say another word. Miss, then two attendants bowed and begged. Fu Lu is young Master Zai's old servant. Miss, please, for young Master's sake, for the sake of young Master's hard work, just throw him into prison and let him spend the rest of his life in prison. Humph, Ziming sneered. This kind of old servant is the most hateful. Just because he's a little old, he takes advantage of his seniority and casually orders people around. Usually it's fine, but now is the crucial time. How can we let his groundless nonsense destroy the stability of our Huta village? Miss, everyone begged. Fu Lu saw an old friend and was momentarily blinded. Wasn't he fine just now? If he was respectful to the young miss, was waiting here obediently? Please be merciful, miss. Alas, Ziming sighed and waved his hand. Put him down first. There's no need to throw him into the blood prison. Let him calm down and think. Sometimes, seeing is believing. The guards were overjoyed and hurriedly said in unison, thank you for your kindness, miss. You may leave. Send a few people to report to the Back Earth Palace. Young Master Xiao will immediately go and kowtow to G-Man, tell him what happened in the Netherworld Eye. Ziming waved his hand and instructed. Yes. The guards glanced at each other, then split into two groups. One group took Fu Lu away, while the other quickly walked out of the hall. Sai, let's go, young Master Xiao. Ziming said apologetically. This concubine really didn't expect. It's fine, Xiao Hua said with a smile. Others may not know, but how could this Xiao not know? This concubine knows that young master understands. But this Fu Lu was still fine just now. These days he was also normal. I didn't expect that when he saw young master he would suddenly lose his composure. Ziming nodded and replied. I'm afraid it's because Miss Ziming lost her composure first. Fu Lu saw something strange. Xiao Hua was a bystander, so he naturally saw it clearly. Yes, it should be so. Ziming also knew that his joy just now made Fu Lu suspicious. Perhaps he had misunderstood. But the problem is, Fu Lu's thoughts are also the thoughts of some people in the Back Earth stronghold. Oh, this is... Xiao Hua was slightly stunned, but soon understood. Xiao Hua was brought back by Ziming, but Ziyi accompanied him into the Netherworld Eye. If the karma of Ziyi and Xiao Hua being old friends was removed, no matter what, it was impossible. Anyone who was interested in guessing would draw a lot of reasons for Ziyi's death. Even with G-Man's identity, it would be difficult to explain. Alas, gossip is a fearful thing. Xiao Hua sighed. What else could he say? It was something that didn't exist in the first place, but it could still be insinuated out of thin air. This kind of action was definitely not something Xiao Hua could imagine. This concubine didn't think it through enough. Ziming smiled bitterly. I only wanted to finish everything before lighting the soul-falling lamp. Right now, it has indeed caused a lot of rumors. If this concubine had known earlier, she would have just told the truth. Yes, a lie is often made up for by 10 or even 100 lies. Many times, it's better not to tell the truth. Xiao Hua sighed. Let's go. G-Man has already waited for dozens of days. Midnight's sacrifice has long passed. It's time to let everyone know about the situation inside the Netherworld Eye. As Ziming spoke, he extended his hand and took out the Netherworld bamboo from the soul nest, and handed it to Xiaohua. Xiaohua took the Netherworld bamboo and carefully put it into his storage bag. He didn't dare to casually throw it into the space. Xiao Mao and the others? Xiaohua only now asked. Young Master Xiao and the others are also near the Back Earth Hall. Ziming explained. Ziya's sacrifice ceremony was very grand. The witch elders and G-Man of my Back Earth villages also came. The Shibai village also sent their elders. This is an excellent opportunity. Young Master Xiao is using his connections to establish a relationship with many witch elders and G-Man. Oh, he has this ability? Xiaohua raised his eyebrows. Young Master Xiao's strength may not be comparable to yours, but in this aspect, he is indeed stronger than you. If you want to establish your own sect, you'll have to learn from them. Ziming replied with a smile. Xiaohua smiled faintly. There was no jealousy in his heart. Everyone was different, and he had always known that he didn't have the bearing of a leader. Moreover, he had never had the goal of becoming the master of a region. It would be best if he could establish the fortune gate, but if he couldn't, he wouldn't force it. Oh, so that means Xiao Mao should have found out about his origin? After all, the Shibai village's elders are here, and there are so many witch elders in G-Man. Xiaohua changed the topic. Ziming smiled bitterly and shook his head, answering, Xiao Mao's matter is not suitable to be publicized in my Back Earth village. Moreover, his identity is still a mystery even now. I have already probed the Shibai village's elder, and she doesn't seem to have any impression of Xiao Mao. Of course, I can't rule out the possibility that she is pretending. After all, as young master said, Yu attacked Xiao Mao that night. The Shibai village's elders should know something. Forget it, rice has to be eaten one bite at a time. Things have to be done step by step. Xiaohua understood the difficulty of Xiao Mao's origin and sighed. With your Back Earth village's support and the millet seed. Oh right. Ziming, with so many witch villages G-Man and witch elders here, it is a good opportunity to send out the millet seed. Xiaohua suddenly thought of the millet seed and quickly asked. Hearing Xiaohua's words, Ziming's heart felt warm for no reason. That's right, the gathering of these witch elders and G-Man was indeed a good opportunity. Although Xiao Mao didn't reveal his origin, he got to know a lot of influential people. It was extremely important for Xiao Mao's future development in Ming Mountains. As for Xiaohua, when he thought of these influential people, all he could think of was the millet seed. He wanted to give them the millet seed and let them bring it back to their witch villages, so that these millet seed could be planted in the mountains and rivers of Ming Mountains as soon as possible, allowing those natives who were on the verge of starving to death to escape from their dangerous situation. Of course, Xiao Mao also had the millet seed, but Ziming knew that Xiao Mao would never give it to these witch elders and G-Man for free. There must be some kind of transaction, some kind of price. As for Xiaohua, the initiator of all this, he didn't ask for anything in return, not even a little bit of reputation. Sigh comparing people. Why is there such a big difference? Ziming couldn't help but sigh, but then she became sad again. That's right, not to mention Xiao Mao, what was so good about her? If she had to give the millet seed to these G-Man, she would have some thoughts in her heart. Suddenly, Ziming understood why she couldn't help but have a deep impression of this man when she first saw him, and couldn't help but want to befriend him. Although this man's appearance was very ordinary, but his heart was extremely great, and his heart was also very broad. He could put all the common people in Xiaoyu continent, and the millions of natives in Ming Mountains in his heart. Ziming. Seeing Ziming was a little absent-minded, Xiaohua didn't know that she was thinking so much, and asked curiously, those millet seed he. Xiaolang Ziming couldn't hold back the fire in her heart, and said in a low voice, although the millet seed is very important, but I'm still not out of danger, and I can't break through the last layer of paper with G-Man. Therefore, the millet seed is also something I can rely on. Oh, is that so? How could Xiaohua not know what Ziming was thinking? He sighed and asked, is it your idea or Xiao Mao's idea? I won't hide it from Xiaolang, it's our idea. Ziming answered very calmly. The sooner the better. Many people will starve to death every day. Xiaohua didn't care about the change in the way Ziming addressed him. Thinking about what he saw when he came to Huta Stronghold, he couldn't help but feel a little anxious. But looking at Ziming's apologetic face, he hurriedly said, Of course it depends on you. I know that this matter is related to the future of you and Xiao Mao, so I will listen to your arrangements. Xiao Lang, Ziming's heart softened, and she wanted to stretch out her hand to pull Xiaohua, but just as she stretched out half an inch, her face turned red, and she hurriedly retracted her hand. Oh, I finally understand. Xiaohua didn't seem to notice Ziming's action, and at this moment he suddenly raised his eyes and looked at the palace in the distance, and suddenly said. Ziming was slightly surprised and asked curiously, What's wrong? What did you understand? Hee, you just said that G-Man was waiting for me to report to him, and I was a little surprised. Weren't you also in the Netherworld Eye? So, you didn't report to G-Man at all. Because you and G-Man only have a kind of tacit understanding. A tacit understanding that can't be made clear. Chapter 2904. That's right. Especially now. Ziming's eyes were filled with worry. Ziyan died in my hands, and G-Man still hasn't received the news. I've already sent my trusted men to intercept Ziyan's subordinates outside Huta village. Once they find them, they'll kill them immediately. We just don't want G-Man to know the truth before Elder Wu returns. If she were to fall out with us, all of us would die without a burial ground. Xiaohua wasn't good at scheming, so he couldn't sense the dangers involved. But when he heard Ziming's words, he was also shocked. He said in a low voice, Ziming, I think your Huta Stronghold's G-Man is very benevolent. He can't be as sinister as you think, right? Besides, Ziyan was possessed by a demon, and G-Man might not be? Why don't you just tell her? One shouldn't have the intention to harm others, but one should always guard against others. Xiaohua, facing G-Man, I'm at a disadvantage, so I don't dare to not plan. Even if building Ziya's cenotaph a few days ago was a very good opportunity, with G-Man and Elder Wu appearing, if this concubine were to tell them about Ziyan's matter in front of so many people, it would be a form of protection for this concubine. But I hesitated for a long time, and didn't dare to say it in front of G-Man, for fear that I'll embarrass her and make her angry. Without Elder Wu, without Xiaohua by my side, I don't dare to make a move. Ziming said earnestly. Hiding like this won't do. Xiaohua understood Ziming's thoughts and nodded slightly, expressing his agreement. Xiaohua, don't scold me. Ziming laughed. Midnight's memorial ceremony isn't the most solemn. Not all of G-Man and Elder Wu from Shibai village, and its subordinate Wu village will come. When Ziming lights up the soul-falling lamp, that will be the most solemn ceremony. At that time, Xiaohua and I will take out the seed. That will be the best time. At this point, Ziming let out a sad laugh and continued. Of course, if I can't wait until Grandmaster Wu comes back, then when I'm executed, it will be a grand ceremony as well. The ceremony will be even more grand than midnight. G-Man will definitely take out the seeds and distribute them to Meng Mountains. Xiaolang, don't worry. The people of Meng Mountains will remember Reverend Zhao's kindness. Ziming Xiaohua's heart was slightly sour when he heard this. He couldn't help but look at this woman with concern. Whether it was her heart or her shoulders, she must have seen Midnight's sacrifice and easily thought of her own death. It's all right. Xiaolang, it's actually this concubine's fault for not thinking things through and bringing Xiaolang and the others into danger. Ziming forced a smile and said, However, to be able to meet an extraordinary person like Xiaolang and Daoist Xiao in this world, I can die without regrets. Things haven't reached that stage yet. We haven't decided whether G-Man is a friend or a foe yet. There's still a possibility that Elder Wu will return. Yes. There is also Xiaolang accompanying this concubine, Ziming said shyly at this time. And her voice was very soft, for fear of being heard by others. However, if she were to ask Ziming to transmit his voice, she would not be willing to do so. Although such sweet words could not make one feel intoxicated. Listening to each and every word made her feel happy in life. In her life, it was very rare for her to have the opportunity to say such sweet words, And it was also very rare for her to meet a man like Xiaohua who could make her feel emotional. Yes, this Xiao is by your side. Xiaohua smiled faintly and said while looking into the distance, as long as this Xiao has one breath left, I will definitely not let that old witch hurt a single hair on your head. Old witch. Ziming heard this and smiled. The fear from before had long disappeared. She said, Xiao Lang, this old witch reminds this concubine of a childhood story. However, when she said this, Ziming was somewhat sad. She raised her head and said, let's go, sooner or later we will have to face it. Perhaps today is an opportunity. The Empress Earth Palace was a magnificent palace. It was much bigger than any palace Xiaohua had seen before. Its majestic aura could be seen from far away. If it were not for the beast heads and ghost faces that could be seen from time to time, Xiaohua would almost think that this was the foundation of some great Xiuzhen sect. Moreover, from far away, there were spirit warriors wearing armor standing on both sides. They held strange weapons in their hands that looked like iron halberds and bronze spears. They stood valiantly and proudly under the countless flags. That imposing manner was really like one man holding back 10,000 men. Even when Xiaohua walked through these spirit warriors and arrived in front of the main hall's door, the pressure from the carved beams and painted pillars made Xiaohua feel as if he could not breathe. Xiaohua had to admit from the bottom of his heart that the Empress Earth stronghold, which had been passed down for hundreds of thousands or even millions of years, was not something he could face directly. Without waiting for Xiaohua to step onto the steps in front of the palace door, a majestic shout resounded from above his head. Immediately after, that voice was transmitted directly into the palace hall. This shout was spoken with perfect articulation. Although Xiaohua could hear it clearly, he didn't understand what it meant. However, according to his thoughts, it should be similar to a report. Sure enough, when Xiaohua followed Ziming to the side of the steps to the hall's door, a voice came from inside again. A guard at the door respectfully said, G-Man invites the state of Xi's Imperial Thunder School, Xiaohua, to enter the Empress Earth Palace for an audience. Many thanks, G-Man. Xiaohua did not know how to reply and only casually bowed in response. That guard stepped aside and allowed Xiaohua to enter. Xiaohua followed Ziming into the Empress Earth Palace. Although he was mentally prepared like before, when he saw the scene in front of him, he still could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. He did not dare to use his divine thought or Buddhist awareness to explore, but he could only see with his naked eyes. Not to mention the hundreds of huge bone pillars, which stood there eerily, with black or green brilliance flashing on each of the pillars. When the brilliance flashed, some huge nether beasts showed their ferocious faces. Not to mention the blood-red color on the roof of the palace, which could be seen with the naked eye. He could see layers of blood waves rushing toward his face. The indistinct, seemingly real waves of the netherworld sea also rushed into his ears, and a feeling of fear arose spontaneously. Not to mention that on the hall's surface, countless bones and skeletons were scattered all over. Among these bones, a mournful and sorrowful sound like a chilly wind blew in all directions, and a chilling feeling was also born in an instant. At a glance, the entire hall seemed to be boundless. Inside the hall, all kinds of ghostly wails and howls, the sound of the netherworld wind was loud, and a kind of feeling of being in the depths of the netherworld was enough to make Xiaohua look askance. Young Master Xiao, follow this concubine. At this time, Ziming also had a respectful expression, and said solemnly, the Empress Earth Palace of my Empress Earth stronghold is a huge soul formation. Any swordsman or cultivator who does not understand will be attacked if they rashly use their divine sense to explore. Moreover, the more guilty a person is, the more inner demons will be born when they enter the Empress Earth Palace. Young Master Xiao is a magnanimous person. You only need to restrain your heart and not look too much. Yes, this Xiao understands. Xiaohua nodded. Looking at the direction Ziming was walking, he also slightly quickened his pace and changed direction. Sure enough, in an instant, that kind of oppressive momentum and ferocious intent was reduced by a lot. However, the situation inside the hall was still unclear. There was only a flickering ghostly shadow, and a cold wind blew in all directions. It was as if they had walked into an abandoned graveyard in the wilderness. Even a cultivator like Xiaohua could clearly feel that those ghostly shadows that appeared in front of and behind him at any time were not fake. Perhaps if he was a little bit negligent, those ghostly claws and sharp teeth could possibly bite him. Could this be the legendary opening gambit? Xiaohua shrunk his neck and looked helplessly at Ziming, who was leading the way. He was truly afraid that he would make a fool of himself if he didn't follow Ziming. After walking for about half a cup of tea's time, a green light suddenly flashed in front of Xiaohua's eyes, as if a layer of fog had been cut off. With a burst of light and shadow, a huge palace appeared in front of Xiaohua. In addition to the huge pillars that he saw before, there were many light green decorations. However, Xiaohua only glanced at these decorations for a moment before his eyes stopped at the top of the palace. There was a 2-story high platform above. On the top level, there was only a light green table, and no one was sitting on it. The lower level was slightly smaller, and the table was also bright green. Behind the table was the Empress Earth Stockade's G-Man. When Xiaohua looked below G-Man, it was like an ordinary Dao sect cultivator's banquet. There were also rows of tables, and behind each table sat a person. These people were either male or female, old or young. However, most of them were unfamiliar to Xiaohua. Only a small portion of them were the Empress Earth Stronghold elders that Xiaohua had met before entering the Netherworld path. As for Xiao Mao, Li Zongbao, and Fairy Hongxia, the 3 of them sat at the very bottom. Moreover, the 3 of them sat at the same table. Boy greets G-Man. Ziming walked a few quick steps. It was rather strange. They were clearly still very far away. But Ziming's few steps seemed to be faster than running. Very quickly he neared the crowd. Xiaohua naturally didn't dare to be negligent. He followed closely behind Ziming and hurriedly said, "Junior Xiaohua greets G-Man. Please stand up." At this moment, G-Man no longer had the benevolence from before in the Care Pavilion. In its place was a kind of grace and pressure. He raised his hand and said indifferently, "Thank you, G-Man," Ziming said as he straightened his body. Xiaohua didn't reply and straightened his chest. "How dare you?" Right in front of Xiaohua, less than 2 zhang away, under the white bone pillar, a slightly thin and small guard shouted, "G-Man's orders, you dare to not return the courtesy? You dare to offend G-Man? Return the courtesy?" Xiaohua was slightly stunned. After pondering for a moment he bowed and said, "Thank you, G-Man." No matter." G-Man's face hung a light smile. "Cultivators from the country of Xi are my Empress Earth Stronghold's distinguished guests. Not knowing my Empress Earth Stronghold's etiquette can't be considered as offending." This Xiaohua indeed scratched his head. He raised his voice and said, "Junior is a cultivator and has always pursued freedom. How would I know etiquette? If G-Man has some rules here, please inform me in advance." Chapter 2905. It's all Boy's fault. Ziming says with a smile. "When we met G-Man, we didn't need any etiquette. Boy was careless. Today we came to Ho-Tu Palace in a hurry and didn't warn Xiaohua." Nonsense. The guard doesn't dare to talk to Ziming, but sneers at Xiaohua. The cultivators from the Dao sect were all well educated and reasonable. How come they don't know etiquette when they come to you? Is this how the disciples of your Imperial Thunder sect are? Ziming frowns and looks at the guard with displeasure. She didn't expect the guard to make things difficult for her. She mutters in her heart, not knowing if this was G-Man's idea. Hearing this, Xiaohua sneers and says, "That's right. I don't know the etiquette of Meng Mountain. Also, I am a rogue cultivator. I don't even know the etiquette of the Imperial Thunder sect. When I set the etiquette in the future, I will let you know what etiquette is." The guard takes a step forward and is about to get angry. G-Man says indifferently, "Qingyan, I already said that Xiaohua is my Ho-Tu Stronghold's honored guest. He also saved Mo Han from the Netherworld Eye. He can be considered my Ho-Tu Stronghold's benefactor. Although you are the law enforcer and in charge of all the laws in my Ho-Tu Stronghold, this kind of etiquette negligence shouldn't be a big deal, right?" "Yes, subordinate understands." The guard quickly lowers his head and stands under the bone pillar, ignoring Xiaohua. Damn it, this is clearly a show of strength. Xiaohua understood, and he felt disdain in his heart. Looks like Ziming is not worried about nothingness. This G-man really has some problems. Xiaohua, at this moment, G-man speaks again and asks straightforwardly, I'm sure you know why I called you here today. When the netherworld eye opened in my Ho-Tu stronghold, not only did thousands of spirit warriors enter the netherworld eye, even the 2 elders of Jingapple stronghold, Ziyi and you entered. But in the end only Yu Jilan, and my Ho-Tu stronghold soul warrior, Mo Han, came out. The other several thousand soul warriors stayed in the netherworld sea. Even Midnight didn't come out. Even when we were outside the Yellow Springs Palace, we all knew that something had happened in the netherworld eye, but Jilan and Mo Han knew very little about it. In the end, they only knew that the Sound Clam beast had appeared, but they were unable to tell how those thousands of people had died. Little friend Xiao, please explain this matter in detail. After all, Ziyi is the son of my Ho-Tu stockade. His death. I need to give an explanation to my people, as well as to Elder Wu, who has yet to return. As she spoke, G-Man glanced at the bottom of her right hand, which was on the left side of Xiaohua. G-Man, Elder Jilan, and the others were also seated there. She continued, moreover, the Jing Apple village has been in my Ho-Tu village for a long time. I can't refuse their request. Your wager should be decided today. If you can't take out the Netherworld Orchid, then this Netherworld Mirror will have to be given to the Jing Apple village to use. Yes, this junior understands. Xiaohua bowed and looked at Ziming. Ziming smiled slightly, as if he was encouraging Xiaohua. And so Xiaohua explained everything that happened in the Yellow Springs Palace, the Netherworld Eye, and even the situation of him and Ziming looking for the Netherworld Orchid and Netherworld Bamboo. There was nothing to hide about this matter, and Xiaohua didn't plan on hiding it either. Although Ziming said that he didn't report it to G-Man. Who knew if G-Man would ask Ziming about it? Since Ziming didn't give any hints, Xiaohua would naturally talk about the dangers involved. When everyone heard that there were 2 underworld beasts in the Netherworld Sea, and that the Ho-Tu God's doppelganger didn't look like Ho-Tu God, but something else, they all turned pale with fright. When they heard that the 2 underworld beasts were fighting in the Netherworld Sea, they were even more confused. When Xiaohua talked about the Sound Clam beast, G-Man was not particularly surprised because she already had some guesses. Of course, Ziye's life should have ended when the Sound Clam beast appeared. Xiaohua's words were also very good. When he heard the mysterious music, he immediately lost consciousness like Elder Jilan and the others. As for how long he lost consciousness, he didn't know. In short, when he woke up his body flashed with golden light, and Ziyi had already disappeared. He left an excuse for Ziye's corpse to appear in the future, or for Ziming to resurrect Ziyi. The end of Xiaohua's story was to escape. He escaped from the gap, and it was in that gap that he saw Elder Jilan. On the way he even saw Mo Han, who was crushed by a huge rock, and rescued Mo Han in passing. Xiaohua had been interrogated more than once in the Sword Dao battle, and he was able to weave an extravagant lie. When it came to telling the truth, it was naturally easy for him to do so, and his narration was extremely brilliant. So much so that when Xiaohua finished speaking, looking at the intoxicated and infatuated appearance of everyone, Xiaohua's own little tail was about to curl up. Damn it, it seems that if this young master doesn't have a place to cultivate, even if I go to some secular tea house, I can still be a storyteller with a boundless future. After half a cup of tea's time, G-Man coughed and asked, Xiaohua, can you confirm that the doppelganger of Ho-Tu God is the phantom you saw in the square before? Damn it. Your nether beast is the nether beast that Ho-Tu stronghold has worshipped for God knows how many years. Even when it saw Ziming, it didn't harm him. What I said is like slapping the face of the ancestors of Ho-Tu stronghold. When Xiaohua heard this, his little tail immediately shriveled up. He quickly bowed and said, G-Man, this junior is going to report to you again, and this is also the result of this junior's meditation during this period of secluded cultivation. Speak. This junior was with Ziyi at that time. This junior said that I saw the nether beast in the square, but Ziyi denied it. Because this junior is not from Meng Mountains, I couldn't see the true face of the nether beast. What he saw was not the nether beast that appeared in the square. However, the situation was very urgent at that time. and this junior didn't dare to release my divine sense. Naturally, this junior was mistaken. Unfortunately, Z can't explain it here. Oh, G-Man breathed out a sigh of relief and nodded slightly. If that's the case, then this old woman is relieved. The doppelganger of Huta God has been worshipped by my Huta stronghold for countless years. How could it harm the people of my Huta stronghold? It should be that other nether beasts are somewhat similar to the doppelganger of the great god. When they saw the doppelganger of the great god appear here, they followed it and occasionally appeared in the netherworld eye. Yes, that must be it. Ziming also breathed a sigh of relief. This matter was indeed a little strange. She herself didn't know the origin of the nether beast. When Xiaohua was in secluded cultivation, she had considered how to explain it. She even wanted to say that this nether beast was the one that saved her, and Xiaohua later. She originally wanted to have a discussion with Xiaohua when he came out of seclusion, but after encountering Fulu's matter, her mood suddenly became extremely bad, and she forgot all these things. When Xiaohua brought it up now, her heart thumped loudly, and she knew the oversight in the matter. Xiaohua's cover-up could not be considered clever, but it was detailed and pertinent. If he had directly followed Ziming's words and replaced the nether beast with the savior later, then the danger of this nether beast would have been covered up. If G-Man didn't have any misgivings, perhaps it would have harmed the Huta stronghold in the future. Now that Xiaohua had given Ziyi the right to judge, presumably G-Man had already heard something. It could be considered a perfect explanation for this matter. G-Man. Just as G-Man finished speaking, an old and doddering elder stood up, holding a bone staff in his hand. He trembled as he bowed and said, "This old man has a few questions, but I don't know if I should ask." "Hee, great elder Jiaqing, if you have any questions, feel free to ask." G-Man hurriedly raised his hand and replied. "Fine." I knew it. Xiaohua's face was bitter. It seemed that no matter where he went, he would be questioned by others. As expected, great elder Jiaqing turned his head and looked at Xiaohua. "Xiaohua, what you said before, can you swear the Dao sect's so-called blood oath?" See, Xiaohua took in a deep breath. He had seen ruthless people before, but he had never seen such a ruthless person. The first sentence he said was to force others to swear a blood oath. It seemed that in Xiaohua's impression, only the extremely arrogant Gantian Mountain would do such a thing. Elder Xiaohua faintly bowed and said, "What this junior said is what this junior saw. This junior will report it in full detail. As for the blood oath, I'm sorry, this junior does not have the habit of bowing and groveling. Please forgive me." Great Elder Ziming hurriedly said, "Xiaohua is Zai's good friend, and is also an important guest of our Back Earth stronghold. He definitely won't lie. Furthermore, there is no need for him to lie. This junior knows what you are thinking, but don't worry." Unfortunately, Great Elder Jiaqing didn't care at all. He said with a calm and slightly old voice, "However, without the Dao sect's blood oath, this is all your side of the story. How do you expect me to believe you? Whether you believe me or not is Great Elder's matter. I won't force you." Xiaohua wasn't annoyed. He had to reply to the words of the Golden Core Masters in the meeting hall. However, facing the Great Elder of the Back Earth Hall, Xiaohua didn't feel any pressure. Cough cough, Great Elder G-Man could only cough twice and say, "Xiaohua is a Dao sect cultivator and came to our Meng Mountain as a guest. No matter what, he represents the Dao sect. Furthermore, he is Zai's good friend, and this matter concerns Zai's life and death. He definitely won't lie about this. As for the blood oath, let's not talk about it." Alright, since even G-Man believes it, this old man has nothing else to ask. Grand Elder Jiaqing trembled as he prepared to sit down. Chapter 2906. Sigh. It seems like there are always people who take advantage of their seniority everywhere. The millions of soul cultivators in Meng Mountains are no exception. Xiaohua sighed. He knew that G-Man would definitely back down, so he quickly thought of a way to deal with it. Unexpectedly, G-Man said indifferently, "Since Great Elder Jiaqing has nothing to ask, then sit down." G-Man. Before Great Elder Jiaqing sat down, another slightly younger elder stood up and walked out from the table in front of him. Bowing, he said, "This subordinate has 2 questions for Xiaohua." Go ahead." G-Man nodded lazily. Little friend Xiao, this old man from Huta Stockade has 2 points that I don't quite understand. Please explain them in detail. Seeing that this person was very amiable, Xiaohua smiled and said, Elder, please speak. This junior will tell you everything he knows. Actually, little friend has already explained it in detail, but this old man still doesn't understand. Elder Jieqing smiled and said, Why did the second underworld beast save you? Could it be that young Master Zai has some connection with this underworld beast? Or does little friend have some connection with this underworld beast? Elder, this is a good question. This is what this junior has always been puzzled about. Xiaohua nodded and said seriously, If I say that this junior has some connection with the underworld beast, I'm sure Elder would be the first to not believe me, right? Hee, even this junior doesn't dare to believe it. But if the second underworld beast has some enmity with the first one, then this junior feels that it is a bit strange. The 2 underworld beasts happened to meet in the netherworldly eye, so they started fighting. Then the soul cultivators of Huta Stockade were affected. This is what my Dao sect always says, when the city gate is on fire, the fish in the moat will suffer. But recently, this junior has a new idea. When this junior lost consciousness, Zai was right next to this junior, and this junior had unknowingly walked to the side of the netherworldly sea. Before this junior lost consciousness, the 2 underworld beasts were still fighting. If Zai was saved by the underworld beast, then it is absolutely possible. That's right, isn't that the underworld beast worshipped by Huta Stockade? Ziming's lips curled into a smile. He knew that Xiaohua wanted to bring out Zai's corpse more and more. This was an excellent reason for him to bring out his precious corpse in the future. Seeing that Xiaohua hadn't really answered the question, the first elder didn't pursue the matter any further. Instead, as if it were a routine matter, he asked another question. Very well then. This old man has one last question. That is, when the sound clam appeared, young friend, you were already not far from the Sea of Hades. But why was it that when you woke up and walked to the side of the Sea of Hades, the several thousand soul warriors of my back earth stronghold were buried in the Sea of Hades? At that time, Elder Jilan was still very far away from the Netherworld Sea. What about the crack near the Netherworld Sea? Xiaohua laughed in his mind. He was the only one who knew the truth. Even Ziming was confused, so didn't he just say whatever he wanted? Elder Jieqing, this junior also wanted to answer this question of yours. Unfortunately, this junior has been thinking about it for a long time, but I haven't been able to figure it out. This junior doesn't know what happened on that day. After all, this junior was confused by the sound mirage beast and became delirious. This junior also doesn't know why the golden barrier around this junior's body was able to block the sound mirage beast. Furthermore, this golden barrier was eroded by the winds of the netherworldly sea. So why was it able to activate itself and block the sound? This junior also doesn't know. It seemed that Elder Jieqing didn't want to get to the bottom of the matter. Hearing Xiaohua's explanation, he nodded. This old man is puzzled. This is the end of everything, and all the explanations are within. But little friend Xiao is also in a jar, so it's normal that you don't know. The reason why this old man asked is to see if little friend Xiao had any special feelings. No, Xiaohua shook his head firmly. After this junior woke up, this junior felt extremely tired, both mentally and physically. Furthermore, this junior was in a hurry to escape, so I didn't dare to think too much. Along the way, this junior used up all of this junior's magic power, and was finally able to escape with my life. While this junior was meditating, this junior was still thanking the great goddess Hutu. Fortunately, she didn't want this junior to stay. The great goddess Hutu's embrace is the final destination for the people of Meng Mountain. Little friend Xiao is a cultivator of the Dao sect. Even if you wanted to, the great goddess wouldn't accept you. Elder Jieqing smiled and walked back to the table. Actually, just as Elder Jieqing said, there were only 3 survivors. Elder Jilan was one side, Emohan was another, and Xiaohua was the third. Elder Jilan and Emohan had already reported to Ji-Man in the Hutu Palace. They were interrogated in great detail, but they knew very little. They only knew that the entire netherworldly sea was shaken violently, countless passages collapsed, and countless cliffs fell down. In fact, most of the several thousand spirit warriors had died in this disaster. As for what exactly happened, they didn't know. The entire explanation could only be explained by Xiaohua, and what Xiaohua said didn't contradict what the other two said. Of course, it seemed that Xiaohua himself didn't know how many spirit warriors the nether beast killed, and how much brain matter it ate. In the end, when facing the sound mirage beast, the three of them were unconscious. Midnight went missing, and no one could explain what happened. The most suspicious thing for the spirit warriors was the golden light Xiaohua used to escape, but it just so happened that this golden light was a technique of the Dao sect. Moreover, Xiaohua had saved 2 people while escaping. If Xiaohua had encountered any survivors, he would have definitely been able to save them. All of a sudden, the spirit warriors' mouths were shut. "Everyone, is there anything else you want to ask?" G-Man lowered his head and looked around. "If there's nothing else, this matter will be recorded in the shaman code." "Oh, so that's how it is." Xiaohua somewhat understood why he had to answer questions in the Empress Earth Palace, and why that Elder Shu sure had to stand up and interrogate him. All of this had to be recorded in the Empress Earth Stronghold's shaman code. G-Man, Ziming at the side bowed and said, "Midnight should be recorded as missing. He might not have returned to the embrace of the Empress Earth Great God." "Yes, these records have their own discretion." G-Man nodded. "If what Xiaohua said is true, then we were a little hasty in making the sacrifice for Midnight." Hearing this, Ziming hurriedly lowered her head and looked at the ground. Clearly, this was also a mistake. She was a little too hasty. However, G-Man didn't pursue this matter. She asked again, "Qingzhe, did you hear?" Xiaohua accompanied Midnight to the Netherworld Eye. Although he didn't find the Netherworld Orchid, he did find the Netherworld Bamboo. You should know the value of the Netherworld Bamboo. This bet, your Jing Apple Stronghold has lost. Yes, this concubine knows. Jing Apple Stronghold's G-Man hurriedly stood up. Her face was filled with sorrow as she replied. If this concubine knew that the price would be so high, this concubine wouldn't have fought with Miss Ziming for anything. It's all because of this concubine's greed that caused such a huge loss. G-Man, please punish me. Sai, there's no need. G-Man waved his hand. The cultivators of the Taoist sect often say that life and death are decreed by fate, and riches and honor are decided by the heavens. Zai was destined for this calamity. Everything happened because of the great Huta God. You only came to my Huta stronghold because you listened to the great Huta God. Yes, this concubine understands. Jing Apple Stronghold's G-Man hurriedly nodded. This concubine is willing to use the Netherworld Mirror only once. The first 2 times, we will let the Dao sect's distinguished guests use it first. Good. G-Man nodded. If you don't have any objections, then let Ziming go to the ancestral shrine to ask for the spirit treasure. Yes, the boy understands. The boy will go to the ancestral shrine after bathing for 3 days. Ziming finally heaved a sigh of relief. She didn't think that things would be so simple. Then G-Man waved her hand. Ziming accompanied Xiaohua to the side. Outside the hall, another table was taken out. The 2 of them sat down. G-Man casually asked a few more questions. Listening to those who came to report, most of them were about the drought in Ming Mountains. G-Man only listened and instructed the note-takers. When Elder Wu came back, she stood up and left. That's it. After G-Man left, everyone also stood up and prepared to leave the Empress Earth Hall in 2s and 3s. Xiaohua was just like Ziming. He was confused and felt that it was inconceivable. No one asked anything else? Let's go, young Master Xiao. Ziming smiled. The Empress Earth Hall is the meeting place of my Empress Earth stronghold. If it wasn't for the matter of the Netherworld Eye, young Master Xiao and the others wouldn't have been able to enter so easily. Hehe, good. I've really witnessed the majesty of the Empress Earth Stronghold's meeting hall. Xiaohua said with a smile. Everything had come to an end. They only needed to use the Netherworld Mirror 3 days later, and they would be able to find clues about Xiao Mao's background. At that time, the clouds would be lifted and the sky would be revealed. Thinking about this, Xiaohua felt that all his efforts were not in vain. All his suffering was not in vain. Young Master Xiao, a somewhat old voice sounded. Xiaohua raised his head and saw Elder Jilan of Jing Apple Stronghold walking quickly towards him. Elder Jilan. Xiaohua bowed and greeted. It has been several dozen days since we last met. Has Elder recovered? Young Master Xiao. Elder Jilan walked in front of Xiaohua and said gratefully. This old one was temporarily bewitched by the Sound Clam beast. I only need to rest for a few days. How can I be compared to young Master's injuries? This old one has always wanted to thank young Master for saving my life. However, this old one knew that you were seriously injured and needed to cultivate in seclusion. Thus, this old one did not dare to disturb you. Today, when I saw young Master in the Empress Earth Hall, this old one finally felt relieved. This old one hereby thanks young Master for his great kindness. After saying that, Elder Jilan was about to kneel on the ground. It was actually the etiquette of Meng Mountain. I don't dare. How could Xiaohua allow Elder Jilan to kneel? He quickly stepped forward and supported him. Who would have thought that this simple support would cause a great force to come from Elder Jilan's arm? Xiaohua was startled. His arm could not help but exert strength as well, firmly supporting Elder Jilan. If that was all, it would be fine. However, after Xiaohua supported Elder Jilan, the strength of Elder Jilan's arm gradually increased, as if he wanted to compete with Xiaohua in terms of strength. Chapter 2907. This old man, what is he trying to do? Xiaohua was quite puzzled, but he couldn't let go at this time, so he had to increase his strength along with Elder Jilan. After a while, Elder Jilan's face turned red. Xiaohua smiled and said, Elder Jilan, are you here to thank me? Or are you here to compete? Elder Jilan's eyes flashed with a strange light. The strength in his arm slowly weakened, and the redness on his face gradually faded. He then smiled and said, This old man is here to thank you, young master. However, this old man heard that young master rescued Emohan from the boulder, so I wanted to test young master's strength. This is a bit presumptuous of me. Oh, I see. Xiaohua suddenly understood. That day, the boulder that was pressing down on Emohan was extremely large and extremely heavy. Even with Xiaohua's strength, he had to expend a great deal of effort to rescue Emohan. Presumably, this Elder Jilan had heard about it and wanted to win, right? Young Master Xiao. Sure enough, Ziming smiled and said, Elder Jilan is the #1 divine force in our Huta stronghold. Many young people nowadays can't compare to you. I'm ashamed, but this little strength is nothing in front of young Master Xiao. Elder Jilan waved his hand and took out a small storage pouch. He handed it to Xiaohua and said, This old man is a soul cultivator. I've been traveling in Meng Mountains all my life. Although I've met some cultivators of the Dao sect, they were all weak. What this old man got from them was nothing good, so I just threw them away. You won't be able to use any of my soul cultivation items, so if this old and decrepit man were to only express his gratitude without actually giving you something in return, this old and decrepit man wouldn't be able to live with himself. Oh, Elder Jilan, you're too polite. Xiaohua knew that there was nothing good in the storage pouch. Before Elder Jilan could finish, he hurriedly declined and said, Rescuing you is this junior's duty. Although you and I have different origins, one is a soul warrior and the other is a cultivator, when this junior met Zai in Celestial City in the early years, we were hypocritical and felt that each other was sincere. At that time, to be honest, this junior didn't have a good impression of soul cultivators. But after the trip to Meng Mountains, not only did I know that Zai is a soul cultivator, but I also saw the simplicity of other soul warriors and natives. The difference between Dao and soul cultivators in this junior's heart has long faded. Although we have different cultivation paths, we are all cultivators of the world. You are this junior's senior. This junior has fulfilled his duty. Do you still dare to ask senior for repayment? Elder Jilan was very happy to hear this. His dark and thin face wrinkled like a black-orange peel, and his snow-white eyebrows trembled slightly. Young friend, this old man is very happy to hear such words. This old man wishes that you were one of the soul warriors of Meng Mountain. This old man will definitely pass on his mantle to you. Xiaohua's hand was almost sticking out of his throat. He almost said yes himself. Ziming pursed her lips and wanted to laugh. At this time, she understood Xiaohua's stinginess. She also knew that Xiaohua also wanted Elder Jilan's soul technique bone. However, this was obviously impossible. Xiaohua was a cultivator of the country of Xi. Ziming didn't dare to give Xiaohua the soul cultivation technique and soul technique of Huta stronghold, so how could Elder Jilan do it? As long as Senior has the heart. Xiaohua pretended to be reserved and said, "This junior understands Senior's heart." Hee. Elder Jilan naturally wouldn't accept the storage pouch. He couldn't leave Xiaohua's great kindness for the future. He smiled and said, "Young Master Xiao, listen to this old's explanation." "Senior, please speak." Xiaohua obediently replied. At this time Li Zongbao, Xiao Mao, and Fairy Hongxia came over and stood next to Xiaohua with smiles on their faces. Xiaohua smiled and nodded to the three, indicating that everything was fine. At this time, Elder Jilan continued. In order to thank young Master Xiao for his kindness, this olds took a lot of trouble. However, this olds has nothing that young Master Xiao can use. However, last time at the Huta Palace, Missouri Han said that he was crushed under a huge rock, and thus escaped the Sound Mirage Beast's bewitchment. When young Master Xiao rescued him, this old's heart was moved. This storage pouch was something this old specially returned to Jingapple Stronghold to retrieve. I was waiting for young Master Xiao to come out of seclusion today, before giving it to young Master Xiao. Oh, this old's intention was to test young Master Xiao's arm strength just now. Young Master Xiao, please don't misunderstand. It's fine. Xiaohua was grateful. After all, Elder Jilan really took a lot of trouble to thank him. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Just now, Miss Ziming also said that this old's innate divine strength is the strongest man in Huta Stronghold for several hundred years. When this old's was young, my ambition was higher than the sky. I wanted to become the strongest man in Meng Mountains. Moreover, I was looking for a way to increase my strength." Speaking until here, Elder Jilan was somewhat proud as he faintly recalled the scene of his heroic past. Oh, a bone refining technique? Xiaohua's eyes lit up. His gaze unconsciously fell on the small storage pouch. Unfortunately, Elder Jilan immediately sighed and said, "However, this old searched the entire Meng Mountains for several tens of thousands of miles. I even went nearly 1,000 miles into Wumeng Mountains, but I still couldn't find a suitable soul technique or body technique. Therefore, this olds knew that this olds had to go to Sword Domain, or the Three Kingdoms to look for this secret technique. However, just as this olds disappointment was about to set off, this olds bone was actually recorded with the method to refine a weapon. Speaking until here, Elder Jilan looked at Xiaohua and the others and asked in a somewhat showy manner, "I wonder if young Master Xiao and the others have heard of the primordial era's famous weapon, the 5 Elements Heaven-Reaching Staff." Oh, Xiaohua was stunned. He didn't expect that the millions of soul cultivators in Meng Mountains would actually know of this weapon. However, looking at the smile on Elder Jilan's face, Xiaohua shook his head and said, "Junior and the others are ignorant and inexperienced. We have never heard of such a weapon. May I ask why this 5 Elements Heaven-Reaching Staff is a famous weapon in the primordial era?" Hee. These are all old stories buried in my Meng Mountains. If this olds hadn't obtained that bone, I'm afraid I wouldn't have known about it. It's normal that you all don't know about it. Jilan was overjoyed when she heard this. She knew that she could repay the favor today. She smiled and said, "The 5 Elements Wishful Heaven Cudgel, as its name suggests, is a lethal weapon of the 5 elements. Any 5 elements in the world can be killed by it. As for the Heaven-Reaching Staff, it means that this weapon can change its size at will. As for the Heaven-Reaching Staff, it means that this weapon is unparalleled in the world. It can even pierce through the sky. So powerful." Apart from Xiaohua, Li Zongbao and the others looked at each other. They really couldn't imagine that there was such a treasure in this world. Elder Jilan said proudly, "The bone this olds obtained is related to this 5 Elements Heaven-Reaching Staff." "Elder, could it be that the bone records the whereabouts of the 5 Elements Heaven-Reaching Staff?" Ziming asked curiously. "Young Miss Ziming," Elder Jilan said with a smile, "the 5 Elements Heaven-Reaching Staff is an item from the immemorial era. Who knows when the immemorial era was? In this world, not to mention the passage of time, just the vicissitudes of time. How could a single bone record the whereabouts of such a ferocious weapon? Then this bone must be the method to refine the 5 elements heaven-reaching staff. Xiaohua was a little disappointed and asked tentatively. It's not that simple. Elder Jilan kept Xiaohua guessing and said mysteriously, the materials used to refine the 5 elements heaven-reaching staff are all heaven-defying. Without the so-called great divine ability, it's impossible to refine it. Even if this olds obtained it, it's useless. Elder, you've talked for so long. What exactly is recorded in the bone? Ziming understood that Elder Jilan wanted Xiaohua to pay attention to this bone, so she took the opportunity to ask. Naturally, it records the secret technique to refine a weapon that's extremely similar to the 5 elements heaven-reaching staff. The heaven-reaching staff. Elder Jilan finally uncovered the riddle and looked at Xiaohua expectantly. Xiaohua was really disappointed when he heard this. However, when he saw Elder Jilan's gaze, his face immediately flashed with surprise, and he said anxiously, "What? This is the secret technique to refine the heaven-reaching staff? Then isn't that the weapon this junior has been longing for? Elder, this is really too much. This junior thanks Elder. Ha ha ha, as long as little friend likes it." Elder Jilan's face blushed faintly. He stroked his beard with his eagle claw-like hand and said with a smile, this old's trip to the Jing Apple Village was not in vain. This junior is naturally happy, Xiaohua said with a smile. This junior is already regretting that he didn't directly accept it. Little friend really has a straightforward character. This old's also like you. You're very similar to Zai and Ziming, Elder Jilan said with a smile. However, he wasn't in a hurry to give the storage pouch to Xiaohua. Instead, he said, however, this old still has some surprises for little friend. Oh, what are they? Xiaohua rubbed his hands and said with a smile. This junior is somewhat impatient. Hee, this old's had 2 choices when I obtained the bone, Elder Jilan said with a smile. Either I continue to search for a method to refine my body, or I refine the heaven-reaching staff and use it to increase my strength. This old's thought for a long time and gave up on searching for a method to refine my body. Instead, I began to search for materials to refine the heaven-reaching staff. Unfortunately, this old's thought for a long time only led to a careless mistake. When I gathered almost all the materials to refine the heaven-reaching staff, I realized that in this world, where could this old self find a refiner who could refine the heaven-reaching staff? Oh, that's right. Ziming also came to a realization. The joy he felt for Xiaohua was instantly replaced by disappointment. This heaven-reaching staff is so heavy. What kind of method would be needed to refine it? It seems that the refining technique of our Ming Mountain can't be completed, right? That's right. When this old self realized this, I immediately went to ask Master and I Qin. Elder Jilan said with a regretful tone. Chapter 2908. Hua Qin was also helpless after seeing it. He suggested that I go to Wu Meng's side to find a shaman, or go to the 3 kingdoms to find a blacksmith. However, he also made it clear that the blacksmiths who could forge the sky-leveling rod would have extremely high cultivations, and the price was something I couldn't afford. He didn't even think that there were blacksmiths who could forge the sky-leveling rod in this world. As for Wu Meng's side, I naturally wouldn't go there so easily. Elder Jilan continued. As for the Sword region and the 3 kingdoms, I thought about it and couldn't make a trip there. After all, I can't even take out something to thank little friend Xiao, so I can't satisfy the blacksmith's requests. Actually, Elder Jilan should go and take a look, Ziming said regretfully. You've already collected most of the materials, and you just need to forge it. I only said that I didn't go there myself. I didn't say that I didn't ask others to go, Elder Jilan said with a smile. Elder Ziming's voice was a little long, as if she was pouting. Hee. Elder Jilan looked at Ziming, who had consulted him in the past, and smiled. Of course, I didn't give up and asked people to go to the Sword region and the 3 kingdoms many times. I even asked the shaman of the Huta stockade to ask the shaman king for me. It was probably quite difficult, right? Xiaohua naturally already knew the result. Jilan sighed and said, "Yes, there was no news from the Sword region and the Three Kingdoms, but the Shaman King gave me a message." "What message?" Everyone's eyes lit up. Elder Jilan sighed again. "If there is fate, then there is. If there is no fate, then there is no need to force it. A gain is a loss, and a loss is a gain." Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Wasn't that the same as not saying anything? Therefore, I calmed down and put this matter at the back of my mind, focusing on soul spells. Now, I'm finally sitting on the seat of an elder. At this point, Elder Jilan sighed with emotion. Today, I finally understand the meaning of the Shaman King's words. If this old man had been focusing on this sky-leveling rod, I'm afraid that everything would have been wasted by now. Moreover, when this old man brought this material from the Jing Apple village, I understood that this young friend is a fated person. This old man is just making a wedding dress for you. Sigh, Senior. Xiaohua sighed with emotion. He withdrew his outstretched hand and smiled bitterly. This is your life's work. This junior doesn't dare to accept it. Senior, please give this junior's. Oh, could it be that this old man's life can't compare to this storage pouch? Elder Jilan was slightly angry. Young master. Ziming hurriedly smiled and said, "Since it's Elder Jilan's kind intentions, young master should accept it. If you don't accept it, wouldn't you be letting Senior down?" "Fine. All right. Many thanks, Elder Jilan." Xiaohua didn't dare to decline anymore. He was afraid that if he was too polite and Elder Jilan didn't give it to him, he would regret it for the rest of his life. Seeing Xiaohua's troubled expression, Elder Jilan felt a bit anxious. To be honest, this storage pouch was very important to him, but it had already become a demon in his heart. From time to time, he would recall his past bravery. He thought to himself, if I could refine this heaven-pacifying staff, how powerful would I be? Moreover, he also understood that refining this heaven-pacifying staff was truly difficult. When he gave this item to Xiaohua, he glorified it as a treasured sword for a hero, and powder for a beauty. In reality, it was of little value to Xiaohua. How about this? Just as Xiaohua's hand was about to touch the storage bag, Elder Jilan said in a low voice. "Ah." Xiaohua stared blankly, his heart cursing. "This item is indeed of little value." Elder Jilan hesitated. "Don't. This item is very good. This junior wants it." If Xiaohua's soul could speak, he would definitely be shouting like this. This old man has a bone here that records a place. Of course, this place is very dangerous. According to this old man's knowledge, it's the place where a Dao sect cultivator died. Elder Jilan took out a bone from the soul nest and said, "This old man doesn't know who this cultivator was or what his cultivation was. The bone only records that this cultivator died in Wumeng. If little friend Xiao is fated, you can go and take a look. Maybe you can obtain his legacy." Speaking up to here, Elder Jilan was a bit embarrassed and said, "This old man only has these that little friend Xiao can use. There's nothing else." Hee, Elder Jilan. Xiaohua faintly smiled and reached out to take the storage bag and the bone. He threw them into the space without hesitation and said, "The important thing is Senior's goodwill. This junior doesn't want to accept it. This junior won't really go to Wumeng to look for that Dao sect cultivator's legacy." Good. Seeing that Xiaohua finally kept the storage bag, Elder Jilan's heart also settled down. He said in a relaxed manner, "This old man will return to the Jing Apple village tomorrow. If little friend Xiao has time, you can come to the Jing Apple village as a guest. This old man is looking forward to it." Good. Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, "This junior will definitely pay a visit when he has time." Then, Elder Jilan followed Xiaohua and cupped his hands to bid farewell. After Elder Jilan left, only Xiaohua and the others were left in the back earth hall. It seemed very empty. "Let's go, young Master Xiao." Ziming looked at everyone and walked in front. "Are you all right?" Fairy Hongxia looked at Ziming's back and asked Xiaohua softly. Xiaohua smiled and nodded. "Of course I'm all right. It's a pity that my seclusion time was too short." "It's still too short. It's already been dozens of days," Fairy Hongxia said worriedly. "This concubine thought that your injuries were extremely serious." It's still all right. Xiao Hua didn't say much and left the back earth hall. From the outside, the back earth hall was extremely vast and dangerous. But from the inside, it was much easier. Even though the thick bone pillars were still bone pillars, they didn't have the same aura as before. They didn't look too different from the pillars of a normal palace. As soon as Xiao Chen stepped out of the back earth hall, he was greeted by several guards. They were lined up neatly on either side of the door. A tall and skinny dark-skinned soul warrior walked over to Xiao Chen and bowed. This one is Emo Han. Thank you for saving my life, young Master Xiao. Emo Han. Xiao Hua was surprised. He looked at this unfamiliar soul warrior and didn't have any impression of him. But then he remembered what G-Man said in the back earth hall. Smiling, he raised his hand and said, "Don't thank me, don't thank me. It was nothing but a small effort from this Xiao. There's no need to thank me. This junior's injuries are quite serious. I've been resting for the past few days. When I heard that young Master Xiao had come to the back earth hall, I hurried over. I must thank young Master Xiao for his kindness," Emo Han said sincerely after being helped up. "Emo Han, I've heard about your injuries. You should go back and rest," Ziming said with a smile. "Young Master Xiao is a man with a big heart. You won't take this matter too seriously." "Yes, this subordinate will go back now." Emo Han looked at Ziming, then looked at Xiao Hua and smiled. Since this subordinate can see that young Master Xiao and young Miss Ziming are both safe and sound, this subordinate can rest easy. After saying that, Emo Han turned around and left. When he left, his steps were still a bit light. It was obvious that his injuries hadn't healed yet. Alas, we soul warriors of Meng specialize in soul warriors. But some soul warriors have neglected to refine their bodies. Ziming looked at Emo Han's back and sighed. This Emo Han's injuries may be serious, but it's been several weeks. Even if they haven't healed, it shouldn't be like this. When Xiao Hua heard this, he raised an eyebrow as if he had discovered something. But just as he was about to say something, Ziming turned to look at Xiao Mao. She was a bit hesitant to talk to Xiao Hua too much. Ziming said, "Young Master Xiao, I'm afraid you've been waiting for too long. As the saying goes, good things come with many setbacks." After so many things, young Master Xiao will definitely have a good ending. Xiao Mao had gotten to know quite a few elders of Meng over the past few weeks. Even though he didn't talk too much, and didn't even talk about his origins, he had a general understanding of the situation in the Back Earth Stronghold, and Shibai Stronghold. It was much clearer than what Ziming had told him, and what Old Wu had told him. Because of this, Xiao Mao wasn't too worried about his situation. When he heard Ziming's words, he quickly cupped his hands and said, "Young Miss Ziming, you've done a lot for this subordinate. This Xiao can't thank you enough." This is for young Master Xiao, and at the same time, for this concubine." Ziming smiled and nodded. "This concubine will go back to bathe and burn some incense. 3 days later, I'll invite the Netherworld Mirror and head to young Master Xiao's place. We'll use the 2 chances that we've obtained with great difficulty." "Good. I'll wait for young Miss Ziming's good news." Xiao Mao smiled and nodded. Immediately after, Ziming ordered the guards beside her to send Xiao Hua and the rest back. Then she hurriedly left. Seeing how Ziming had separated herself from Xiao Hua so clearly in front of her, and didn't even say a word, Fairy Hongxia snorted coldly in her heart. But at this moment, Xiao Hua suddenly realized something and hurriedly looked in the direction Ziming had left. However, Ziming had already walked far away, and her graceful figure was nowhere to be seen. "What's wrong? Do you have something to say again?" Fairy Hongxia's tone was a little unfriendly. Xiao Hua nodded thoughtfully. "Indeed. Some things. If you think about it carefully, it's really interesting." "What do you mean?" Fairy Hongxia saw how serious Xiao Hua was and asked curiously. Xiao Hua took a look and transmitted his voice. Emo Han's words just now seemed to have another meaning. Although Emo Han was slightly injured, his injuries shouldn't be so serious. Not bad." Fairy Hongxia savored it carefully, and a look of astonishment appeared on her face. Emo Han didn't even know that you and Ziming had gone to the Netherworld together. Why did he say that he was relieved that young Master Xiao and young Miss Ziming were safe and sound? Could it be? That's right. Perhaps that person in the Empress Earth Palace already has suspicions about Ziming. Xiaohua nodded his head slightly and expressed his worries. Chapter 2909. Sigh, that's true. Fairy Hongxia also frowned. There's no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world. Ziming's actions will sooner or later reach Huta's stronghold. Darling Xiao, since you've thought of it, why didn't you tell Ziming earlier? Xiaohua smiled bitterly. Didn't I just think of it? I was just about to tell her when she left in a hurry. Perhaps she already knows? Fairy Hongxia sighed. That should be the case. Ziming is very sensitive to such matters. Since you and I have thought of it, she must have understood as well. You and I don't have to worry too much. She should be able to protect herself. Let's hope so. The two of them transmitted their voices to each other as they slowly walked to the main hall where they were resting. After the guards had left, Xiaohua told Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao about his guess. The two of them were anxious when they heard it, but their thoughts were similar to Fairy Hongxia's. This Huta's stronghold was a place where millions of descendants of the great god Hutu of Meng Mountain gathered. The mysteries within it were not something cultivators like them could fathom. Even if Xiaohua wanted to send a letter to Ziming, it would not be easy. He might even alert the enemy. Naturally, Xiaohua was not at ease with the three of them going somewhere else to meditate. Thus, he set up the capital star formation in the main hall where he meditated, and the four of them rested. Seeing Fairy Hongxia and the other two closing their eyes and meditating, Xiaohua smiled and took out the storage pouch that Elder Jilan had given him. In fact, he was itching to see what was inside the pouch when he was in the main hall. However, he held back. Now that he had the time, he naturally wanted to take a look. Hiss, when Xiaohua's divine sense swept across the storage pouch, a look of surprise appeared on his face. The storage pouch was not big and looked very small. It was almost the same size as the low-grade storage pouch that Xiaohua had exchanged for 90 low-grade spirit stones. However, when Xiaohua saw what was inside, he knew that he was wrong. Furthermore, he could already imagine how many materials Elder Jilan had spent his entire life searching for. However, he still thought too little. Inside this small storage pouch, there were many different materials. These materials were of different shapes and colors, but without exception, they were all huge. Among these materials, there were some strange huge stone pillars. These stone pillars were iron gray in color and had thumb-sized lumps on them, giving them a heavy feeling. Some of them were huge square blocks. These square blocks were greenish-red in color, and there were some flame-like patterns on the surface. The patterns were dotted with star-shaped patterns, and they looked like little galaxies. There were also a lot of large, silvery white, irregular materials. These materials seemed to be broken into several pieces. There were some sawtooth-like cracks and some thick lines. There were also some oval-shaped, earthy yellow in color. The surface of these materials was smooth, without any bumps or bumps. Of course, other than these different materials, there were also many strange magic weapons stacked in a corner of the storage bag. What materials are these materials? Xiaohua was overjoyed, but at the same time he was dumbfounded. He took out the bone and inspected it with his soul sense. Then he nodded his head inwardly. This green and red color is called flame refinement. The silver color is called 10,000 rolls of snow, and the yellow color is called fire refinement. They are all extremely heavy materials that contain the 5 elements, and are unique to these millions of Meng mountains. These are the materials that Elder Jilan spent his entire life searching for. After a brief inspection, Xiaohua sent the storage pouch into the immortal dimension, leaving only 2 of the bones in his hands. Xiaohua took a quick look at the bone that recorded the fall of the Dao Sec Senior, and sent it into the immortal dimension. Xiaohua would not recklessly enter a dangerous place where even the Dao Sec Senior had fallen. Next, Xiaohua placed all his attention on the refining method of the heaven leveling staff. Xiaohua's current refining level was already very high. Previously, he had fused the exquisite gold and great wisdom heavy sword into the 5 elements will heaven leveling staff. Now, with the help of the refining method, he naturally gained a lot. The more he looked at it, the more a smile appeared on his face. 3 days later, Xiaohua opened his eyes and stood up, keeping the capital stars array. Fairy Hongxia and the rest stood up as well. When they opened the door of the hall, some guards were already waiting for them outside. Translators thoughts lamb underscore lamb underscore lamb underscore lamb underscore lamb underscore lamb underscore seeing the 2 rows of guards guarding the steps in front of the palace. Xiaohua understood that Ziming would definitely be able to obtain the spirit treasure nether passage mirror from the Empress Earth stronghold today. Thus, the 4 of them opened the palace door and stood guard outside, quietly waiting for Ziming's arrival. Who would have thought that this wait lasted until noon? Seeing that the scarlet sun was already high above their heads, Ziming still hadn't arrived. If it wasn't for Mo Han's warning, Xiaohua wouldn't have let his imagination run wild. Thinking that even Mo Han had sensed something, could Ziming still be safe? Xiaohua could not help but become impatient. Big brother, don't be anxious. Let me go ask. Xiao Mao saw Xiaohua's impatience and hurriedly said. And Xiaohua nodded gloomily. He had a bad premonition in his heart. However, when Xiao Mao walked out of the palace and asked the guards, he came back with a smile on his face. Big brother, we were all wrong. Xiao Mao said, that nether passage mirror can only be used at night. At this time, the sun is high in the sky and the yang energy is abundant. How can it communicate with the netherworld? Oh, that's true. Xiaohua suddenly understood, and his heart relaxed. Moreover, that guard also said, Miss Ziming entered the ancestral hall 3 days ago, and will come out after dusk today. They are only waiting here according to the ancestors' rules. Xiao Mao pointed at those guards again. Xiaohua smiled and said, It seems that we are somewhat like birds startled by the twang of a bow. Yes, little brother was too impatient. Xiao Mao pursed his lips and said with a smile, Little brother really can't wait to know what mother looks like. At this point, Xiaohua unconsciously raised his eyes and looked at Li Zongbao, who had not spoken much during this period of time. However, he saw that Li Zongbao was now similar to when he was in the great battle of Dao Sword. His face was as calm as water, as if what everyone said had nothing to do with him. AI, the treasured mirror of parting emotions. The treasured mirror of parting emotions. Xiaohua sighed. It was originally a cultivation technique that made people fickle and heartless. Coupled with the backlash of the spiritual tool, senior brother Li's situation. I don't know if it's good or bad. Since they knew that nothing would happen, the 4 of them simply sat behind the door of the hall. The 4 of them all had secret techniques to comprehend, so they had to hurry. In a flash, thin clouds rose from the west, and a crescent moon that was thinner than a light eyebrow gradually hung in the sky. Ziming, who was dressed in plain clothes, finally arrived. Without waiting for Ziming to approach the steps of the main hall, the guards lined up on both sides of the hall put their hands on the ground and bent their bodies. A kind of fear and a kind of reverence flashed in their eyes as they looked at Ziming, who was holding a white bone bracelet. This bone bracelet was extremely strange. It looked like Ziming was holding it with both hands, but in reality it was 2 inches away from Ziming's hands, floating in the air. Moreover, this bone bracelet really did not stop rotating, sometimes left and right, sometimes up and down. A kind of dark green brilliance was born from the bone bracelet, as if it was a dark green ball of light. At this time, Ziming's expression was solemn. Her head was lowered, and her eyes were also looking at the bone bracelet. That night, her face was painted with a dark green color, which looked somewhat strange. Behind Ziming, there were also a dozen maidservants dressed in plain clothes. Their dressing was completely different from during the day. About 10 zhang behind these maidservants, Elder Sinyu of the Jing Apple Village was waiting there with a little girl who was not more than 6 or 7 years old. When Xiaohua and the others sensed Ziming's arrival, they all walked out of the main hall, originally wanting to welcome him. However, when they saw the solemn ceremony of the Huta village, they hurriedly returned to the main hall, fearing that their recklessness would disrupt the ceremony and cause trouble for no reason. Sure enough, when the 4 of them just returned to the main hall, a burst of singing and footsteps sounded. Those guards and the maidservants behind Ziming actually began to dance. Strands of light green brilliance slowly appeared, covering the main hall. Then it slowly entered the dark green ball of light. After the time it took to eat a meal, The noise outside the main hall slowly stopped as Ziming's footsteps finally stepped on the stairs. Young Master Xiao, please come with me. Ziming walked into the main hall, his face as calm as water. Without even looking at the four of them, he just whispered an order, and slowly walked towards the center of the main hall. Xiaohua was slightly startled. He did not understand if he was talking about himself. However, when he saw Xiao Mao hurriedly walking towards him, he smiled bitterly and shook his head. Although the reason he came to the Huta village and used the Netherlink mirror was for Li Zongbao, in terms of importance, Xiao Mao was still the most important person. He did not seem to have done anything to use the Netherlink mirror, so why did Ziming call him? Seeing that Li Zongbao and Fairy Hongxia had also followed Xiao Mao, Xiaohua looked at the maidservants who came in. Elder Sun Yu and the little boy who were waiting at the entrance of the main hall also quickly followed. When they reached the center of the main hall, Ziming stopped and respectfully placed his hands above his head. The bone bracelet also slowly rose up. After that, Ziming's hands and feet began to tremble, and he also began to dance. At the same time, he was also muttering some strange language of Meng Mountain. As he muttered, strands of green light flashed out, gradually entangling the ball of light of the bone bracelet. A buzzing sound was gradually heard, and the dark green brilliance gradually vibrated and became brighter as the green light increased. Puff, while Ziming was chanting, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood essence into the dark green brilliance that was as thin as a cicada's wing. With a cracking sound, the brilliance suddenly condensed into a single point and shot towards the top and bottom of the bone bracelet. With a muffled boom, as if the door of a house had been opened, two fist-sized holes appeared on the top and bottom of the bone bracelet. With a splash, like a blood waterfall, the blood of the netherworld gushed out from the holes and rushed into the middle of the bone bracelet along the brilliance. In that instant, the entire bone bracelet turned blood red. At the same time, a layer of blood membrane was formed from the bone bracelet. This blood membrane did not stop, but condensed into blood on the other side of the bone bracelet and rushed into the other hole. Chapter 29:10. Ziming's face was pale. He pointed at the netherworld mirror, and the blood-red membrane slowly fell down. It was about the height of a person, and the netherworld water on the blood membrane slowly flowed. It looked very similar to a mirror. Young Master Xiao, Ziming spoke. Come closer and think of the person you are looking for. That person's face will appear on the netherworld mirror. Even her situation in the netherworld may appear. Yes. At this point, how could Xiao Mao still be suspicious of this spirit treasure that was obviously not related to a mirror? He walked in front of the blood membrane with great sincerity and opened his eyes wide. Although Xiaohua was not close to the blood membrane, he still stared at it closely, trying to find something from it. Unfortunately, after half a cup of tea's time, the entire blood membrane flashed with a green light, and then it shone like a bright moon. It covered Xiao Mao's entire face. After half a cup of tea's time, the green light dimmed, and the blood membrane gradually revealed itself. Behind the green light, Xiao Mao had tears streaming down his face. Young Master Li, Ziming's expression did not change, and he ordered methodically, "It's your turn." "Okay," Li Zongbao replied. Although his expression was calm, his voice was obviously trembling, as if he had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Xiao Mao retreated, and hurriedly took out a jade scroll. He sat down cross-legged, and without caring about the others he immersed his spirit into it. Li Zongbao walked to where Xiao Mao was, and similarly opened his eyes wide, staring at the blood membrane. After a while, the green light flashed, and Li Zongbao's face was also covered. But it only covered for a moment, and the green light disappeared again. Only the faint sound of flowing water could be heard from the blood membrane. Why is this? Li Zongbao was extremely surprised and looked at Ziming. Ziming said indifferently, "The person young Master Li is thinking of is not in the netherworld, or rather, she is not dead." "How is that possible?" Not only was Li Zongbao shocked, even Xiaohua and Fairy Hongxia were shocked. Li Zongbao turned to look at Xiaohua. Her corpse was personally sent back by this Xiao. Xiaohua hastily said as he took a step forward. "That's right, I personally buried her." Fairy Hongxia said curiously. Could it be? Could it be that she has already reincarnated? Reincarnation may not be true. Ziming replied indifferently. Even if there is such a thing as reincarnation, the spirit treasures of my Ho-Tu stronghold can see it. Unless this person isn't dead. Let me take a look again. Li Zongbao asked in disbelief. Young Master Li has already seen it. You can't look at it anymore. Ziming shook his head. However, since Mr. Li did not see it, it doesn't count. Between Mr. Xiao and Fairy Hongxia, one of them can still see it. You go. Xiao Hua said to Fairy Hongxia without hesitation. All right. Fairy Hongxia also missed her elder sister immensely and hurriedly walked over. Li Zongbao hurriedly stepped aside. Under the watchful gazes of the masses, Fairy Hongxia did the same as Li Zongbao. The brilliance did not stop at all as it disappeared in a flash. That's right. This person wasn't dead. There's no need to look anymore. Ziming became more and more certain. He looked at Xiao Hua and said, Young Master Xiao, you have 2 chances. Come and take a look. Me? What do I have to look at? Xiao Hua hurriedly waved his hand. Although Xiao Hongyue and Gong Mingwei had fallen for a long time, Xiao Hua had a deep impression of their voices and smiles. There was no need for him to look. Furthermore, the 2 of them were in another world in the netherworld. Xiao Hua did not want to disturb them. Sigh, if only senior sister was here. Xiao Hua thought and turned to look at Elder Sun Yu and the young child. He said, Let's invite Elder Sun Yu over. After all, they have proper matters to attend to. Ziming naturally knew of Xiao Hua's kindness. He nodded his head and said, Elder Sun Yu, invite Bo Hong over. All right. Elder Sun Yu was overjoyed. He hurriedly brought the young child over. Ziming was afraid that the young child did not know, so he repeated the key points again. Only then did he let the young child stand there. Although the young child named Bo Hong was young, his eyes flashed with determination. He bit his lips and looked at the blood membrane. This time it was even easier. In a breath's time, a green light covered Bo Hong's face. After a cup of tea's time, the green light dispersed. After the green light disappeared, Bo Hong's face revealed a terrified expression. It was as if he had seen something terrifying. However, the child's small hands were tightly clenched, although they were trembling. Saw it. Elder Sun Yu's face was extremely gloomy as he asked in a deep voice. Bo Hong did not answer. He only nodded his head firmly. Elder Sun Yu sighed. He raised his head and said to Ziming, Young Miss Ziming, there should be one more chance for this netherworld mirror. Can you? Ziming knew what he wanted to say. He shook his head and said, It's almost past midnight. It's too late to ask her to come over. Sigh, fate makes fools of people. Elder Sun Yu held Bo Hong's hand and bowed to Ziming. He then thanked Xiao Hua and the others and stood to the side. There's still a cup of tea's worth of time left. Ziming looked around and her gaze landed on Xiao Hua. She said indifferently, Young Master Xiao won 2 chances to use the netherworld mirror. Because of this, you also lost Zai. This opportunity cannot be wasted. Right now, only young Master Xiao can use the netherworld mirror. Come over. But who am I looking at? Xiao Hua scratched his head. He knew that this was a rare opportunity that could not be wasted. However, he really did not know who to look at. Forget it. Let's look at Master. Xiao Hua walked in front of the blood membrane and said in his heart, When I see senior sister and second senior brother, I can explain it to them. Thinking about this, Xiao Hua looked at the blood membrane that was flowing like water. Xiao Hua's eyes fell on the blood membrane, but his mind couldn't calm down. Xiao Hongyue's and Gong Mingwei's faces kept appearing in his mind. Although the flowing blood membrane flickered with a faint green light, it didn't shine for a long time. This adult had experienced many things and thought about many things. Although he was a cultivator and paid attention to his Tao heart, he was not as pure as a child. Forget it, Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. He knew that he was unable to calm down. Just as he was about to move his eyes away, an unimaginable thought suddenly appeared in his mind. That's right. Why can't I think about my own life? Perhaps I can see something from it. Dream. I remember that when Hong Xia was in danger at the Sword Peak, this name suddenly appeared in my mind. Perhaps I can find something from it thinking about this. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and gradually wiped away the faces of Xiao Hongyue and Gong Mingwei. Gradually, a faintly discernible beauty mark appeared in his mind. Ziming was also somewhat anxious. Seeing that the time was about to come, the netherworld mirror still had not emitted a green light. Just as she was about to speak, a wong sound was heard. The entire netherworld mirror emitted an intense brilliance. In an instant it covered Xiao Hua. This brilliance was so intense that it far exceeded what Ziming had seen before. Ziming was shocked. As for Xiao Hua, in the instant that beauty mark appeared in his mind, he saw the blood membrane that was originally gurgling with blood suddenly become blurry. It was as if it had entered a teleportation. All of the blood vessels were distorted, and all of the green light was elongated. After a burst of light and shadow changed in front of his eyes, a huge pitch-black silhouette appeared in front of him. It was like a huge palace, but also like an unparalleled monster in the world. However, before he could see clearly what this silhouette was, an extremely strange and icy cold voice resounded by his ear, and it spoke a few words that he didn't understand at all. Immediately after, his vision became heavy as numerous enormous shadows smashed down like boulders, and the blood-red nether passage mirror appeared before his eyes once more. However, at this time, all of the blood within the netherworld mirror was cut off. All of the green light was scattered. Moreover, this scattering spread to the bone ring around the blood membrane in an instant. Kacha! A few crisp sounds rang out. The entire bone ring cracked in 3 places. A mirror-like shadow flashed out at the same time as the cracks appeared. It turned into specks of light, and rushed into the blood flow. Moreover, as the bone ring broke, the 2 holes pierced by the green light instantly disappeared. The large amount of blood flowing between the 2 holes immediately turned into an incomparably ferocious hell wind that soared into the sky. It was like a huge hammer smashing towards the roof of the hall. Although the roof of the main hall flashed with green light, which seemed to be the defense of the solar ray, under this unparalleled netherworld wind pillar, it was easily torn apart. A hole of about 10 feet appeared on the roof of the main hall. The netherworld wind pillar rushed into the night sky and disappeared. Only faint starlight sprinkled down from the hole and fell on Ziming, who was caught off guard and did not know what to do. And on the entire main hall, all of the people who were dumbfounded. Young Master Xiao, what are you doing? After a long while, Ziming hesitantly asked. His gaze timidly looked at the bone ring that had already broken into several pieces and fallen on the floor of the main hall. I really did not do anything. Xiao Hua was also extremely wronged. I just wanted to take a look. I did not expect it to be like this. Ziming almost wanted to cry. He asked closely, Then what did you see? What did you want to see? I also do not know what I wanted to see. And I also do not know what I saw. Xiao Hua wanted to cry even more. He really did not see anything. It was just a blurry outline. Who the hell knew what it was? Young Master Xiao, you have caused this concubine to suffer. Ziming stomped his feet and bent down to pick up the bone ring. But at this time, a ghostly voice came from the hole. Ziming, this is all because of you. How did this old woman treat you? You can ask yourself. I did not expect you to do such a thing against this old woman. G-Man? Xiao Hua and Ziming were both shocked. They were about to raise their heads to look at the sky. At this time, a strong turbulence rushed in from the hole. It was like a netherworld wind pillar that broke the sky and trapped Xiao Hua and the other 4 people. Chapter 29:11. Xiao Hua didn't even have time to use his mana before he felt a sharp pain in his head. If his soul stab was like a sharp knife, then G-Man's soul stab was like a mountain of knives and a sea of knives. Xiao Hua's body was covered in cuts and bruises. Moreover, in the instant his magic power became sluggish and his head started to hurt, several dark green rays of light entangled by the black gas descended from the sky like dark green pythons, firmly trapping Xiao Hua. Not only was his magic power shackled, even his physical body was numb and powerless. Roar. How could Xiao Hua allow himself to be captured so easily? He forcefully activated the Dragonization Manual, and also forcefully activated the Celestial Body Bestowment Technique. A layer of faint golden light suddenly appeared on the surface of his body. This golden light was like a thorn that pierced straight into the dark green giant python, forcefully creating a gap of half an inch. Emph! There was another cold snort. A pale white streak of light came down from the sky. It was a soul armament. This soul armament was about the size of a palm, but it suddenly expanded in size in the wind of the netherworld. Like a giant hand, it slammed into Xiaohua's golden light. Kacha-kacha. There was a series of cracking sounds as the large lock turned into a shackle that locked Xiaohua's entire body in place. One by one, white bones started to form and pierce deep into Xiaohua's body. The golden light around Xiaohua's body was immediately extinguished. Two sharp sword-like bone spurs emerged from the shackles and protruded from Xiaohua's back. They dangerously pressed against the back of Xiaohua's head and the top of his head. Those sharp points had already pierced into Xiaohua's skin. An enormous force emerged from the white bones of the shackles. Not only did it completely confine Xiaohua's body and meridians, it also sealed the mysterious dark clouds. Ai Xiaohua sighed. This G-man was far too strong. Looking at Ziming and the others, he saw that they were also trapped by the giant python. There was nothing they could do to resist. Xiaohua looked up to see G-man's malevolent face. Slowly coming out from the hole, G-man's eyes were filled with hatred as he looked at everyone. Lord G-man, Xiaohua struggled with all his might, but it seemed that he still had some strength left in him. He shouted. This Xiao was the one who broke this nether passage mirror. I will bear all the responsibility. The nether passage mirror. Hee, you're really powerful, spiritual master Xiao. You actually destroyed the soul treasure of my Huta stockade. Do you really intend to join hands with this slut to snatch my Huta stockade from my hands? When G-man heard this, he glanced at the wreckage of the netherlink mirror on the ground. A trace of astonishment flashed across his face as he spoke coldly. G-man, what do you mean? Without waiting for Xiaohua to speak, Ziming also said coldly, although this boy has made some mistakes, when has he ever had such a rebellious heart? Could it be that G-man? Heh, if you have a mind to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. You really won't turn back until you hit the wall. What are you still trying to hide from me? With a wave of G-man's hand, the sound of hurried footsteps could be heard from outside the hall. Over 100 armored guards were escorting dozens of soul warriors into the hall. These dozens of soul warriors were all drenched in blood, and their faces were filled with malevolence. What is this for? Ziming squinted his eyes and said indifferently, these are all boys' close attendants. It was precisely because the boy was worried that the Huta stockade's defense would be lax that he sent them out to patrol. G-man captured them all, and even tortured them for questioning. Why? Could it be? G-man wants to force the boy into harm? Ha ha ha. What do I need a reason to do? You're just a candidate for G-man. Do I need to force you into harm? G-man laughed bitterly. It's just that I never thought that this old woman would be so kind to you. Everything I did was for your sake. I even gave you a fair chance. But you're actually a mountain wolf that can't be tamed. Just a little bit of success and you became so arrogant. Not only did you do so many things behind my back that made my heart cold, you even killed Lu. Did you know? Luer had warned this old woman more than once, but this old woman had always believed you. I thought that a woman who vowed to revive others would not have any evil intentions. But I never thought that your revival of others was just an excuse. It was just a way for you to cover up your evil deeds. Once the time is right, you'll reveal your sharp teeth. You really made me give up. G-man, why don't you stop talking? Facing G-man's madness, Ziming replied indifferently. Could it be that you didn't sleep well last night and suddenly went crazy? For no reason, you killed the boy's close attendants and even captured the boy and the others. You even took out the Huta stockade's soul lock to deal with the guests from the country of Xi. Oh, what does your Luer's life have to do with the boy? Besides, the one who wants him dead is probably that Lu, called Ziyan, right? The boy only needs to light up the soul loss lamp and he'll be G-man. Why do you have to look for trouble and take other people's lives? Even now you're still so stubborn. Don't think that I can't kill you just because Elder Wu isn't in the Huta stockade. G-man sneered, knowing that Ziming had nothing to fear. She clapped her hands and took out a fist-sized token, saying, "Of course, I won't kill you secretly. The reason I made such a big fuss is to tell the whole Huta stockade that I have Elder Wu's token in my hands. With this token, as long as I bring you to the ancestral temple and report to the Huta great god, I'll be able to exercise Elder Wu's responsibility. Naturally, I can also use this to kill all of you." Hearing this, Ziming's face turned pale, but then he smiled faintly. Boy has long thought about this situation. You want to get rid of the boy and make way for your Lu. It's not that the boy doesn't know. It's just that the boy has always been under Elder Wu's protection and didn't let you succeed. Now that Elder Wu is really on a long journey, you're using this opportunity to show off your power. The boy had long expected this when he returned to the Huta stockade. However, the boy didn't expect you to wait until now to make your move. You're really shrewd. Humph, G-Man snorted again, her anger rising again. You're just like that bitch, always thinking that you're infallible and putting your own thoughts on others. You only think that you're the most reasonable person in the world. Don't you think that if I had the intention to get rid of you, why would I wait until now? Even if Elder Wu is in the Huta stockade, I can still kill you. You. Haven't you already done it? You. Why didn't you wait for Elder Wu to come back? Ziming bit his lips so hard that some blood vessels appeared, and he reprimanded her word by word. That's because I can't wait any longer. G-Man's voice was terrifyingly cold. Luer has some expectations for Elder Wu's position, and I know that. But I've warned him before, Ming Mountains will always have a lot of kinship, and we can't split the Huta stockade into two just because of some power. In the early years, the ancestors of Ming Mountains had such considerations when they set up Elder Wu and G-Man in the Shaman stockade. Luer is very obedient, and he's always listened to my words. He's always given in to you. And he's never fought with Zai for anything in the Huta stockade. But this time, when the weather in Ming Mountains changed, you lit up the soul-drawing lantern, disregarding the life and death of the people of Ming Mountains. Luer is very obedient, and for the sake of the people of Ming Mountains, he worked tirelessly. I don't even know how many hardships he went through before he finally found the source of the change in the weather. And he even asked for a battle before me, saying that he's willing to lead his subordinates to wipe it out. Look at what Luer has done, and look at you. You've really disgusted me. I really don't know how I've tolerated you all these years. The more G-Man spoke, the more agitated she became, and her entire body was trembling. It seemed like she was really enraged by the sudden news. Of course you like your Luer. No one else can compare to him. Ziming had already thrown caution to the wind, and he didn't care about anything else. He said calmly, "But do you know what your Luer did in Huta stockade? What did he do in the vicinity of Peacock Mound?" Haha. That's right, you're absolutely right. In your eyes, Luer has always been a thorn in your side. That so-called change in the weather is probably a trap that you've painstakingly set up, right? It was also you who leaked this information to Luer, or through someone else, right? You didn't dare to ask for help from Huta stockade. So you took advantage of the cultivators you've met in Shi to ask them to help you, right? G-Man laughed angrily. My poor Luer that day, I even told him clearly that such a change in the weather could not be caused by a single soul beast. But for the sake of the people of Ming Mountains, he didn't listen to my advice, and even said that he wouldn't know until he tried. If you had 10% of Luer's loyalty, how could you have thought of such a vicious plan to kill Xiaochang? At this point, G-Man waved her hand and said coldly, "Kill them all." Yes. The guards in the hall responded. At the same time, they waved their hands. Without using any machetes, the heads of the dozens of captured spirit warriors were immediately separated from their necks. Their blood spurted high into the air, and the entire hall was immediately filled with the pungent smell of blood. However, all the spirit warriors in the hall seemed to be very familiar with this. Even the 10-year-old child from Jingchang stockade didn't show any signs of fear. The guards threw away the corpses of the dead spirit warriors and strode to the pool of blood in front of them. They reached out their hands and picked up the heads of the spirit warriors, stuffing them into their waists. Ziming coldly looked at this scene and said coldly, "Just now you said that others killed Xiaochang. But now you killed the spirit warriors of Huta Stockade in the blink of an eye. And you didn't even ask. It was my order. How could they deserve the death penalty? Haha, you finally admit it. G-Man laughed coldly. This old woman thought that you would be stubborn to the end. Humph, what did I admit? These are just my subordinates. Whatever they did, it should be my responsibility. If you didn't want to cut off my power, why would you suddenly kill them? Ziming denied again. Xiaohua was very surprised. He didn't understand why Ziming would hide the truth of the matter. Didn't Ziming have a soul item that contained the souls of the demon dwellers? If he took it out and showed it to G-Man, she would know. Ziming also said clearly that G-Man and Elder Wu were soul cultivators. It was very unlikely that they would be possessed by the demon dwellers. Chapter 29:12. Ha ha ha, G-Man threw his head back and laughed. His laughter was sharp like an owl's. If this old one doesn't bring out the evidence, I'm afraid you'll never admit it. Your personality is exactly the same as that slut's. Min. Following G-Man's order, a short, dark-skinned and skinny soul warrior rushed into the hall. Xiaohua stared at the soul warrior for a long time, but he couldn't see anything. In his eyes, the dark skinny soul warriors didn't look too different from each other. If they didn't have any obvious characteristics, he might not be able to tell them apart. The soul warrior rushed into the hall and knelt in front of G-Man. He pointed at Ziming, Xiaohua, and the others and said sorrowfully, G-Man, you must seek justice for young Master Ziyan. They were the ones who worked together to kill young Master Ziyan, near the Yellow Sand Ridge. I risked my life to escape from their hands. I didn't even have the time to collect young Master's corpse. Ji Qing, don't worry. Take your time and tell me all the details clearly. Not only are the elders of the Huta Stockade here, but there are also G-Man and the others from the Jing Apple Stockade. They will definitely seek justice for you and announce this matter to the public. G-Man's tone calmed down as he instructed. Xiaohua frowned and raised his head to look. Sure enough, the elders he saw at the Back Earth Hall, as well as G-Man and the others from the Jing Apple Stronghold, were slowly walking into the hall. Each of them had a look of astonishment on their faces as they looked at the hall strangely. They seemed to have been summoned by G-Man from all over the place. Yes. Ji Qing took a deep breath and said. On that day, young Master Ziyan received the news as Ji Qing explained the ins and outs of the matter. Everyone's face was filled with indignation. According to Ji Qing, Ziyan was the one who fell into Ziming's trap for the sake of Mengshan's life, and Ziming was the one who wanted to eliminate Ziyan at all costs for the sake of G-Man's position. In the end, Ji Qing even prostrated himself on the ground and said, G-Man, there were dozens of brothers who came back with this little one. We rushed back to the Back Earth Stronghold day and night, but we didn't expect Miss Ziming to set up an ambush along the way. Except for this little one, the other brothers were all killed by her trusted subordinates. This little one hid in Huanqi Mountain for a long time and didn't dare to show my face. If I didn't meet Elder Yen Su from the Qinji Stronghold, and know that young Master Ziyi had returned to the embrace of the great god Hutu, many Wu elders and Ji-Man had gathered at the Back Earth Stronghold. This little one wouldn't have dared to ask Elder Yen Su to send this little one back to the Back Earth Stronghold. Sai Xiaomao couldn't help but sigh when he heard Ji Qing's words. Ji Qing's ability to lie was comparable to Xiaohua's. Therefore, everything he said was basically true. However, he would always say one or two lies at the end of the story. These few lies would distort the truth of the entire matter, causing people to think that Ziyan, who was originally an evil person, was the incomparably righteous Ziyan, while Ziming, who was killed, became the main culprit. However, Ziming didn't have anything to refute, because she really did kill him afterwards. How is it? G-Man asked indifferently. Ziming, what else do you have to say? G-Man killed Ziyan. The boy doesn't deny it. Ziming finally spoke. But why didn't you think that the boy could have dealt with Ziyan and the 9 divine guards by relying on these few cultivators from the country of Xi? However, just as Ziming finished speaking, he sighed again. Sure enough, G-Man coldly said, that drought demon was your trap. The 9 divine guards were simply no match for drought demon. You naturally didn't rely on these cultivators, but rather that drought demon. Xiaohua looked at Xiao Mao and also smiled bitterly. Who would have known that Drought Demon had pledged allegiance to Xiao Mao later on? Xiaohua naturally also thought that Ziming's maids could testify for her. However, Xiaohua had seen a few of these maids at the very beginning. Later on, they disappeared without a trace. Obviously, they were killed by Ziyan. How could they testify? Why wasn't it Ziyan who set up a trap to deal with the boy? Ziming couldn't help but refute. Ji-Man glanced at Ziming and Xiaohua, nodded and said, as the first candidate for Ji-Man's position, if Ziyan wanted to meddle with the Grand Witch, he could naturally deal with you. But he cares about Meng Mountain, and wants to benefit the people of Meng Mountain, and save them from danger. Why would he care about the position of Grand Witch? Look at you. I already know that this so-called Taoist Xiao has some seeds that can try to solve the current predicament, but for your own selfishness, you used them as the price to haggle with me and Grand Witch. You took these seeds in your own hands. You even want to use these seeds to set up another leader outside of Grand Witch and Ji-Man of Huta Stronghold, dividing the people of Huta Stronghold. Ziming, oh Ziming, your intentions are terrible. Seeds? What seeds? Ji-Man of Jingong Stronghold was puzzled. The seeds taken from the Netherworld Eye, could it be that they can't compare to these seeds? Go and ask him. Ji-Man pointed at another skinny old man in the distance. When the old man saw Ji-Man pointing at him, he quickly walked out from the crowd, bowed and said, I'm Grand Witch of Weeping Fowl Stronghold. More than half a year ago, I learned from the people of Wu Stronghold that they are planting a strange seed. This seed is different from the previous ones. It's not afraid of the drought in Meng Mountain, and it grows very fast, much faster than the previous seeds. Overjoyed, I quickly asked, and only then did I know that it was Miss Ziming's doing. Of course, at that time, I guessed that it was Ji-Man's grace to let Miss Ziming pick the most difficult Wu Stronghold to try. She must not have much confidence, and if she had a result, she would definitely come to me and Grand Witch to discuss this matter. But after waiting for a long time, I didn't receive the summons of Ji-Man and Grand Witch. Instead, I received the bad news of young Master Zai. I came to Huta Stronghold because I missed young Master Zai, and also because I wanted to ask Ji-Man and Grand Witch about the seeds. But during the entire ceremony, Ji-Man didn't mention anything about the seeds, so I didn't dare to probe further. So, I waited in the stronghold, trying to see if I could get the seeds as soon as possible. After all, although the seeds were useful, they were too little. If Ji-Man could give us more seeds, the people of Weeping Fowl Stronghold wouldn't starve to death anymore. The Grand Witch continued, but after waiting for a long time, I didn't see anything. Thinking of those people who starved to death, I couldn't hold it in any longer. That's why I boldly asked to see Master Ji-Man. You can leave now. Ji-Man nodded. After I get the seeds, I'll give them to Weeping Fowl Stronghold first. Thank you, Ji-Man. The old man bowed and left. Ji-Man, Jingapple Stronghold needs more seeds. Ji-Man of Jingapple Stronghold quickly shouted. I know. Ji-Man took a deep breath and said, I don't even have a single seed now. What do you want me to give you? This Ji-Man of Jingapple Stronghold quickly looked at Ziming. Ziming, this is also the reason why I'm extremely disappointed in you, and why I've completely given up on you. Ji-Man said, you clearly have the seeds that can save the people of Meng Mountains. Why don't you take them out? Do you think the position of Ji-Man is more important, or the people of Meng Mountains? If you want the position of Ji-Man, you only need to tell me. As long as you take out the seeds, even if the soul-setting lamp isn't repaired, even if you can't light up the soul-setting lamp, I can still appoint you as Ji-Man's successor. I can even give you the position of Ji-Man right now. You're so straightforward. But if the boy offers the seeds, I'm afraid you'll be the first to send the boy to meet the great god Hutu. Ziming stiffened his neck and said coldly, but what about now? Ji-Man's tone was also cold. You've given up your life, but didn't you still give the seeds to me? Don't you feel regret? That's right. That day, the boy had already told others. This seeds will eventually be given to the people of Meng Mountains, or when the boy lights up the soul-setting lamp, or when the boy returns to the embrace of the great god Hutu. Therefore, the boy has never felt regret. Ji-Man Xiaohua saw that Ziming was already determined to die, so he quickly called out. Shut up. G-Man scolded and waved the bone staff in her hand. Xiao Hua immediately couldn't speak. He couldn't even open his mouth to speak. Xiao Mao and the others were also the same. It's all because of you Taoist sect cultivators from the country of Xi. Ziming was originally a good person, but after getting to know you guys, his heart had these filthy thoughts. If you guys didn't talk to him about revenge, or his background, how could he have fallen into such a dead situation? G-Man said fiercely. Xiao Hua was anxious. He finally understood why G-Man didn't care about Xiao Mao's matter. Moreover, he also understood that today, G-Man had the intention to kill, and none of them would be able to survive. Xiao Hua's mind spun rapidly, trying to come up with a countermeasure. Unfortunately, his cultivation base was too far away from G-Man, and his entire body was sealed by G-Man. Now he couldn't use any of his methods, so how could he fight back? I'm afraid this is the only method left. Xiao Hua quickly sent his mind into the mysterious dark cloud. Although that place was sealed by the soul lock, and his soul strands, primordial spirit and little white dragon couldn't come out, his mind still had a trace of connection with his primordial spirit. He urged the primordial spirit in the dark cloud to speed up the practice of the soul strands, so that he could fight back before G-Man killed him. G-Man Ziming said indifferently. The boy can offer the seeds, but G-Man must agree to one condition of the boy. What condition? G-Man asked back. Young Master Xiao and the others have nothing to do with this matter. They only occasionally got involved. Moreover, these seeds were brought here by young Master Xiao from the country of Xi. As long as you let them go, the boy will immediately offer up the seeds. Ziming glanced at Xiao Hua, who had his eyes closed, and said softly. Sieb, hearing this, Xiao Hua immediately opened his eyes. He was wrong. So the reason why Ziming didn't take out the seeds was to use them as a bargaining chip to exchange for a chance to save them. Chapter 29:13. If I don't release them, will you not give me those millet seeds? G-Man sneered. That's right. Those millet seeds, boy, have been taken out of Huta stronghold by my subordinates. As soon as they hear the news of the boy's death, they will immediately destroy the soul nest. They don't even know what's inside. Ziming nodded. Haha, look, G-Man pointed with her hand. You are the descendant of Huta great god, but you don't treat your own people as your own. The trillions of people in Meng Mountain are not even worth a few damn cultivators. If I compromise with you, how am I going to explain to Huta great god? Not to mention that they killed Lu. I will not let them go. Just because they led you astray, I will kill them. G-Man, Ziming said anxiously. They really have nothing to do with this. Ziyan's death was also because they wanted to save the boy. G-Man waved her hand, stopping Ziming's explanation, and said, Don't worry, I will definitely kill them by your side. I will let you know the feeling of your loved one dying before you die. Hearing the words of his loved one, Ziming's face flushed red. The hatred in his eyes faded as he glanced at Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua had his eyes closed and did not know. Fairy Hongxia was a little embarrassed and angry. She glared fiercely at Ziming. Poor Fairy Hongxia. Previously, she had been burdened by Jiuxia's matter, and was somewhat resentful toward Xiao Hua. However, Jiuxia had saved her life. Furthermore, Jiuxia knew when to stop and leave. This made Fairy Hongxia feel somewhat comforted. Now that they came to Huta stronghold, this Ziming was actually Ziyi. He actually, back in Sky Patrol City, before Fairy Hongxia joined the battle, he already had an affair with Xiao Hua. How could Fairy Hongxia not be miserable? Now Fairy Hongxia had not recovered from the joy and shock of knowing that her sister did not die. Once again, she was awakened by G-Man's words. How could she not be angry? Since G-Man knows about this, then, you must know that if young Master Xiao and the others cannot leave safely, that millet boy will definitely be destroyed. Ziming said resolutely. Since you have such thoughts, then you should also understand my feelings. Since they killed Lu this old woman will definitely not let them off. G-Man replied word by word. You're so good at devising strategies, but there's still a flaw. Not to mention that after I kill you all, I can still find the seed in your storage bags. Why don't you try? Ziming sneered. G-Man ignored her and continued. Furthermore, since you've already broken off all ties with this old woman, you shouldn't have used this seed on the way back to the back earth stockade. Now even if I were to kill all of you, with those seeds in Weeping Lychee Stronghold, I have absolute confidence that I can replace all the seeds in Meng Mountains within 100 years. The millet seeds in your hands right now. It doesn't matter if this old woman wants them or not. It was just a matter of starving the people to death. The sins of these people will all be on your head. Do you think this boy didn't think of this? Speaking up to hear, Ziming's eyes flashed with a touch of tenderness. Unfortunately, young Master Xiao and the others have the world in their hearts. Although they are not the people of Meng Mountains, they are better than the people of Meng Mountains. When they saw too many people starving to death along the way, they threw their own safety to the back of their minds and insisted on keeping the millet seeds. Although this boy knows that this is not appropriate, it can't stop them from being kind. If they were kind, why would they set a trap in the peacock tomb with you? G-Man didn't believe it at all. She waved her hand and said, the truth has been revealed, and this old woman has said all that I can say. In addition, this old woman has revealed this matter in front of all the elders, and recorded this matter in the Magus Code. Even if the Grand Magus returns, even if the people of Back Earth Stockade ask, this old woman has a reason to reply. Ziming, now that things have come to this old woman doesn't want to say anything more. When you return to the embrace of Back Earth Great God, you can reflect on your evil deeds. Xiao Mao didn't know what Xiaohua was doing, but his calmness was different from Li Zongbao's. His corporeal body struggled to break free, and he even opened his mouth to scream. He really wanted to tell the truth, and let Ziming take out the soul artifact that imprisoned the demon's soul. Unfortunately, no matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't break free, and he couldn't even say a single word. Fairy Hong Xia looked at Li Zongbao, and there was helplessness in both of their eyes. They knew that the danger today was far greater than anything they had ever faced before. When the city gate was on fire, the fish in the moat would also suffer. Perhaps, these 4 Taoist sect disciples who came to Meng Mountains from thousands of miles away were really going to die in the fierce struggle for power in Back Earth Stockade. As for Xiaohua, the only person who could create a miracle, he was trapped in the mysterious dark cloud. Countless soul strands were moving around like lightning, and strands of green light were flashing. One after another, shapeless green seal text was forming and disappearing amidst strange noises. The current situation was somewhat similar to when Xiaohua condensed his core. His endless potential was forced out under the threat of death. Furthermore, Xiaohua didn't have the time to think about how to consume the rejuvenation pill, and how to replenish the loss of his life essence. But, how could the ancient green seal text be so easy to comprehend? How could the so-called witchcraft curse be released so easily by the soul strands? Enter the ancestral hall. After G-Man finished speaking, he looked at Xiaohua and the others with disgust, and then looked at Ziming, who had an unusually calm face. He waved his hand and gave an order, and then walked out of the hall. Following G-Man's orders, the guards who had just killed Ziming's subordinates rushed out, each of them grabbing Xiaohua and the rest. Their hands that were still stained with blood were grabbing Xiaohua, and the rest by their necks. As for Fairy Hong Xia and Ziming, they were helped up by the maidservants and followed behind the guards. After coming out from the hall, G-Man's face was still pale. What happened to Ziming and Ziyan was a huge blow to her. She had tried her best to maintain the balance of power in Back Earth Stockade, but things had come to a stage that she didn't want to see. The crowd was like a tide, and G-Man was standing at the tip of the tide. Everyone behind her had a panicked and shocked expression. It was as if they had suddenly woken up in the middle of the night, and suddenly realized that the things that didn't happen in their dreams had actually happened. Young Miss Ziming had actually killed Ziyan, and G-Man was actually going to kill Ziming without Elder Wu's permission. At this moment, the sky was already bright, and a smear of white appeared in the sky. Clouds the size of a fist covered the sky, and the edges of the clouds were faintly golden. When the golden light fell, it illuminated the entire Back Earth Stockade, illuminating the crowd. Following G-Man, they passed through the various halls of the Back Earth Stockade. and arrived at the back of the mountain. There were also some halls behind the mountain, but these halls were different from the ones in front of the mountain. These halls were all huge. Some were built with large stones, some were supported by huge trees, and each hall was inlaid with countless white bones. Most of the palaces in the front of the mountain were red in color, but these halls were mostly dark green in color. The back of the mountain was rather barren, with rugged rocks and thick withered trees everywhere. Even in between the halls, one could vaguely see some white bones. If Xiaohua opened his eyes right now and saw such a scene, perhaps he wouldn't be as surprised as he was when he saw the palaces in Back Earth Stockade, because this barren scene was what he had imagined the shaman stronghold to be like. Unfortunately, Xiaohua was casually carried by a dark and skinny guard, like a hunter carrying his prey. Although Xiaohua's forehead would occasionally flash with a green glow, and faint sobbing sounds could be heard coming from the green glow, it didn't attract the guard's attention at all. Walking along the wide mountain path, G-Man arrived in front of a huge hall in the time it took to eat a meal. This hall was obviously different from the other halls. Not only was it because the entire hall was white in color, but also because the doors and pillars were all built with white bones. On top of these white bones, countless strange beasts and nether beasts were engraved with an unknown method. These nether beasts were vivid and lifelike, and looked extremely terrifying. The sound mirage beast that Xiaohua and Ziming encountered in the Sea of Netherworld was actually one of these nether beasts. G-Man came to a stop in front of the door. Waving her hand, she began to mutter something under her breath. A faint green light began to emerge from the bone staff in her hand. But just as she was about to open the soul array, a scorching hot and furious soul sense swept over from afar. Pung pung pung. A series of popping noises followed. Ah! Screams of agony began to ring through the air. Umph! G-Man sensed it and snorted coldly. The green glow in her hand dissipated, and she turned around to see where the soul sense came from. In the dimly lit sky, an orange-red flame was flying over at an extremely fast speed. In the sky, there were already many guards of Back Earth Stockade riding their soul beasts in front of this flame, but no matter if it was soul beasts or soul warriors, before they could even get close to the flame, a dark red flame flashed around their bodies, and their bodies exploded from the inside out. Blood splattered everywhere, and they fell from the sky. Woo-woo, woo-woo, a deep and furious roar came from afar, and an indescribable feeling of dryness suddenly appeared in G-Man's heart. They're finally here. G-Man's body flashed with green light as she spoke in a low voice. G. In contrast to G-Man's calmness, at the foot of the mountain furthest away from G-Man, the ground beneath the feet of the soul warriors had already begun to crack open. The originally dry soil was drying up and turning yellow at a speed visible to the naked eye, and grains of yellow sand were gradually forming. The soul warriors couldn't help but begin to panic. Raising their heads to look at the massacre in the sky, they cried out in alarm despite knowing that they couldn't panic. Woo-woo, sensing the arrival of Hanba, Xiaomao opened his mouth and let out a whimper. He stopped struggling, and a look of joy appeared in his eyes. Boom boom boom, more and more soul warriors flew into the sky to stop Hanba, but they weren't a match for Hanba at all. Hanba's thick palm would raise from time to time, and every time it raised, several soul warriors would turn into a mist of blood. Every time it raised its palm, several soul warriors would scream and fall from the sky with sparks flying all over their bodies. Chapter 29:14. KH, a sharp cry came from somewhere in the Back Earth stronghold. Like a command, the spirit warriors that were flying in the air immediately stopped and hurriedly dodged. Then the 36 white-haired elders waved their bone staffs and flew into the air. It was clear that these 36 elders had been accumulating their power for a long time. Just as they rose into the air, streaks of dark green light were produced from their bone staffs. These streaks of light were like dots of light that constantly moved between them. In just a moment, a huge green net was born between these elders. Swoosh, the moment the green net was formed, a clear sound came from the sky. Countless ghost heads appeared along with this sound. Furthermore, the green light turned into dots, each of which was an extremely small ghost head. Aolo aolo aolo. A mournful ghost cry came out from these ghost heads. That cold and bloodthirsty aura immediately filled the entire green net. The strange thing was that after these ghost heads howled in unison, not only did the green brilliance disappear, even the ghost heads disappeared as well. It was as if nothing had ever appeared. Hitorigami had already flown close to the elders. At this moment, Hitorigami was different from before. The red hair on Hitorigami's body had all faded away. It was similar to its face. However, Hitorigami's skin was extremely thick. It looked like the texture of a mountain rock. The phosphorescent runes had also faded away. It looked like an ordinary person. Hamba stopped. An ominous glint appeared in its crimson eyes. Sparks would occasionally appear around its body. At this moment, these sparks suddenly flourished. A somewhat hoarse and furious roar was emitted from Hamba's mouth. A hesitant expression appeared in its eyes. Clearly, it had also sensed the power of the soul formation set up by the 36 elders. However, Hamba only paused for a moment. Then it raised its hands again. An indescribable heat suddenly appeared near the 36 elders. Swoosh, a layer of faint green light flashed and covered the elders. Several of the elders' skinny faces suddenly bulged with green veins, and then disappeared. Seeing that its attack was blocked, Hamba became anxious again. Looking at the distant palace, it suddenly changed its direction, and began to land on the ground as if it wanted to burrow into the ground. Unexpectedly, just as Hitorigami moved, 16 of the 36 elders also moved. They flew faster than Hitorigami, and in the blink of an eye, they landed below Hitorigami. Roar! Hitorigami saw these people blocking him, and he waved his hand again. These people's bodies emitted a green light again. Hitorigami's other hand grabbed at the air, and the green light was immediately torn apart. With a muffled bang, another elder's body exploded. The elders to the side didn't think that Hamba would be so strong that the soul formation of 30 people couldn't stop it. Their faces changed. However, the other elders didn't stop. One by one, they flew past Hamba's feet and shook their bone staffs. Wung wung, a strange buzzing sound came from the bone staffs. A huge green net appeared in front of the 15 elders and wrapped around Hamba. At the same time, the 16 elders who stopped in midair also waved their bone staffs. The green net that disappeared earlier appeared again, and covered Hamba from the top to the bottom. Roar! Seeing this, Hamba didn't dare to fly down anymore. Its entire body wanted to escape the range of the green net. Unfortunately, Hamba's flight was still too slow. He had only flown for about 100 feet before the green net began to close up like an inescapable net. The moment the green light came into contact with the net, a sizzling sound was immediately emitted. The brilliance of the light intensified, and the ghost head that had disappeared earlier appeared again with a ferocious expression. It pounced towards Hamba. Roar! Hamba was enraged. The red flames around its body also became brighter. Both of its hands waved continuously. The ghost heads that were pouncing towards it all flashed with a trace of fire, and were completely destroyed. What was special was that the flames around Hamba's body were like golden flying swords. The ghost heads that were close to it were pierced through one by one. Amidst the heart-wrenching screams, the giant green net fell into the flames. Zzz-la-la, after a series of noises, the green net bound the flames out of thin air. At the same time, the flames that were previously revealed were covered. The flames actually became much thinner. What was special was that after the green net fell, each of the green lights started to swim. They were like thin pythons that coiled around Hamba's body. Roar! Hamba roared. Its entire body expanded. The flames also expanded as if it wanted to break free from the green light. Unfortunately, the 35 surviving elders waved their bone staffs at the same time. Countless green lights fell into the green net. As Hamba expanded, the green net also extended. There were no signs of it being destroyed. On the other hand, the flames around Hamba's body became even thinner. Although both of its hands were grabbing onto the green light and trying its best to tear it apart, every time it tore apart a green light, another green light would appear. Moreover, even more ghost heads appeared out of thin air. They were like flies that saw blood. They pounced on Hamba's body and opened their mouths, wanting to devour Hamba's essence blood. If it's only Esoso, G-Man sneered from afar. He was about to wave the bone staff in his hand again. However, at this moment, Two loud sounds came from the air around Hanba and Ji-man. Ah! Ji-man was shocked. She hurriedly looked towards the source of the sound. At this moment, Xiaohua had already opened his eyes. The spirit treasure soul lock that was imprisoning his body was currently emitting an intense sound. What was special was that the bone spikes that were pressing against Xiaohua's forehead and the back of his head were currently being restrained by a layer of dense green light. Furthermore, the green light was flashing more and more, gradually covering Xiaohua's head. The loud sound came from within the green light. Green seal text? Ji-man was even more shocked when she saw it. She could clearly see that the flashing green light was the green seal text that was gradually forming. Furthermore, following the formation of the green seal text, a familiar sound gradually came out. This sound was like the sound of thunder, but also like the sound of flowing water. It came from afar and came closer. It stopped in her ears, and was born in her heart. Not only that, following the sound, an indescribable feeling emerged from Ji-man's heart. She looked at Xiaohua's surroundings in disbelief. Furthermore, following the sound, she looked towards the sky. The formation of the green seal text actually caused a phenomenon in the sky. Strands of dark clouds came from all directions and gradually gathered above Ho-Tu's stronghold. This Ji-man couldn't help but take in a breath of cold air. This was a divine ability that even she didn't have before. That's right, at this moment, Xiaohua had already gradually figured out the method to pronounce the green seal text. Within the mysterious dark clouds, the tiny green seal text overlapped one another and emitted a loud sound. This sound shook the soul lock's imprisonment and wanted to break it apart. Unfortunately, Xiaohua only had the cloud summoning rain talisman. This talisman didn't have any offensive power. Furthermore, Xiaohua's green seal text wasn't completely successful. Even if he wanted to break free from the soul lock's imprisonment, he still couldn't do so. Now it even attracted Ji-man's attention. Humph! Ji-man was shocked and resentment appeared in her eyes. She opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood essence. As she waved her bone staff, a green light appeared in her mouth. When the green light landed on the blood essence immediately exploded and turned into a ghost head. The ghost head screamed and rushed into Xiaohua's head. Following the disappearance of the ghost head, the green light around Xiaohua's head also gradually disappeared. The sound of the green seal text also gradually stopped, and the dark clouds that filled the sky also slowly dispersed. Xiaohua's final struggle was also broken by Ji-man. Xiaohua sighed. He knew that he was already at his wit's end. Ji-man's gaze coldly swept across the dejected Xiaohua. Then he looked into the distance. The other loud sound just now came from where Hanba was. Hanba's body flashed with a red brilliance, and a huge illusory figure appeared from its body. It seemed to be formed by strange red runes, and it grew bigger and bigger. In the moment that Ji-man imprisoned Xiaohua again, the phantom had already grown to more than 10 feet. The green light and ghost head that were binding Hanba was blocked by the phantom. The soul power of the 35 elders seemed to be insufficient to support the green light. As the light flickered, the phantom actually showed signs of collapsing. Hanba, as expected of great god Shibai's descendant. Ji-man sighed. Her body flashed with a green light again. Like a green rainbow, she shot into the sky and appeared right above Hanba's phantom in the blink of an eye. Everyone's eyes were focused on Ji-man. They wanted to see what she would do. However, Ji-man simply stretched out her hand, and a green light appeared at her fingertips. The moment this green light appeared, it was as bright as a star. It was even brighter than the rising sun. With some difficulty, Ji-man pointed her finger, and the green light landed on the phantom. Roar! As the green light entered his body, Hitorigami let out an extremely painful roar. The shadow rapidly shrank, and the green light that bound Hitorigami's body rapidly expanded. In the blink of an eye, Hitorigami returned to his original form. The green shadow was like a giant python that bound Hitorigami tightly. Xiaomao sighed in his heart. He was also dejected. He looked at Xiaohua and wanted to shake his head but couldn't move. He could only smile bitterly. Only Ziming's gaze was hesitant. She wanted to look at Xiaohua, but was also worried about Fairy Hongxia. However, There was clearly some worry in her eyes. This was because when Xiaohua let out that loud noise, she had clearly heard the sound of the green seal text. Although she didn't know how Xiaohua activated the talisman, she was very clear in her heart that activating this mysterious talisman consumed life essence. She should give the rejuvenation pill to Xiaohua, but she couldn't move right now, so how could she take it out? However, when she saw that Xiaohua's face was still the same, she was puzzled. Could it be that she heard wrongly? Hamba was captured by G-Man. Just like Xiao Mao and the others, its burly body struggled with all its might. The flames around its body were also faintly discernible. Unfortunately, the flames were extinguished as soon as they appeared. It seemed to have no effect on the green light. Hamba's hands were also waving non-stop. However, no matter what, it couldn't use the powerful bloodline power from before. Chapter 29:15. G-Man snorted coldly once again. With a point of his finger, Hitorigami immediately fell from the sky like a huge boulder. With a loud boom, it smashed into the foot of the mountain, shattering a huge boulder at the foot of the mountain. Watch this thing carefully, G-Man instructed. Turning around, he transformed into a streak of light and charged towards the hall. The 35 elders did not dare to be negligent. They descended from the air and surrounded Hamba. Green light was faintly discernible on their bone staffs. Clearly, they were on high alert. G-Man's figure appeared in front of the palace door. The bone staff glowed with green light again. G-Man waved his hand, and the green light streaked across the sky like a sharp sword. A green crack appeared in the air in front of the palace door. This crack slowly split open and pulled to both sides. At the same time, the green light rolled up like a rolling curtain. Roar! The green light rolled up halfway. A roar came from the green light, and the two green lights turned into a beast's head. The beast head became slightly more solid, then turned around and charged toward the two deathly white bone doors at the entrance of the palace. With a loud boom, the beast's head sank into the bone doors. The two bone doors glowed with green light and blood gradually appeared. It was like the blood in the Netherworld Sea. It flowed along the bone doors. When the entire bone doors were covered by the blood, G-Man opened his mouth and chanted in the Hutu village's witchcraft language. A flight of stairs gradually appeared in the blood. It extended from the bone doors and extended to G-Man's feet. The blood gradually turned into a ferocious beast's head. It opened its bloody mouth and waited to devour the guests on the stairs. G-Man glanced at the stairs under his feet and slowly stepped onto it. The stairs changed and brought G-Man's body into the mouth of the beast head that was formed by the palace door. As for the guards, when they saw G-Man go, they quickly grabbed Xiao Mao and the others. Especially the guard who was freed from Xiaohua's hands by using the green seal scripture. He kicked Xiaohua fiercely a few times before grabbing Xiaohua's neck and jumping up the stairs. The stairs were also strange. As the guards jumped up, the stairs suddenly widened. It did not feel crowded when the few of them stood together. Naturally, the rest of the people also stepped onto the stairs after the guards. Xiaohua's face was facing down. He could only see the stairs constantly changing, followed by a blood-red color and the smell of blood. In the end, Xiaohua saw a ground full of bones and skeletons. Plop! Xiaohua was casually thrown to the ground like an object. Only now did he have the chance to raise his face and see the situation of this hall clearly. Just as Xiaohua thought, the ancestral shrine of Hutu village was this huge bone hall. There were no pillars in the center of the bone hall. The roof of the hall was made of bones and skeletons, and the floor was also made of bones and skeletons. In fact, it was not clear which was the floor and which was the roof. At the top of the hall was a blood-red curtain that blocked everyone's view. What was behind the curtain couldn't be seen with the naked eye. Not even soul sense or divine sense could see through it. G-Man quietly stood in front of the curtain. Her eyes stared at the blood-red curtain, and 2 traces of blood could be seen in her eyes. Cough cough. After everyone who could enter the ancestral shrine had entered, G-Man coughed twice, turned around and raised her hand. It was the token of Senior Wu. With a cold voice she said, "Everyone, you have all seen it." For the sake of G-Man's position, Zimming had schemed a lot. Not only did he use Huta village's Hamba as bait to lure Xian, then he used Hamba's bloodline power to kill Xian. Furthermore, he had also leaked the secret of Meng Mountain to the cultivators of Dao sect. As a cultivator of Dao sect, this Xiaohua actually knows some witchcraft arts. This old woman really doesn't know how many secrets Ziming had leaked out. Ziming's evil deeds have already violated the teachings of our ancestors. Although he is the primary candidate for Ji-Man, this old woman has decided to send him back to the embrace of Huta Great God, so that he can reflect on his actions. As for these cultivators of Dao sect, they are the murderers of Xian. This old woman will also exterminate them to avenge Xian. After she finished speaking, Ji-Man turned around and faced the blood-red curtain. She knelt down, and a voice of yin and yang came out from her mouth. It seemed like she was praying, but also seemed like she was telling something. All the soul warriors and elders behind her also knelt down, and a similar voice came out from their mouths. Following these voices, strands of green light slowly appeared and floated towards the blood-red curtain. After the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, the green light on the blood-red curtain increased and gradually formed a layer of green mist. At this moment, Ji-Man stood up from the ground and raised the token in her hand. The token flew into the air and rushed into the mist. With a buzzing sound, all of the mist was sucked in by the token. The token trembled for a moment, then turned into a strange beast head the size of a fist. The beast head suddenly opened its bloody mouth, and a beam of green light shot out, landing on the blood-red curtain. The curtain gradually opened, and a huge statue of Huta Great God appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Woo! A series of strange high-pitched sounds came from the mouths of the Huta stronghold's residents. Everyone piously knelt down again. The gigantic statue of a deity was floating in midair, and the two hands in front of it were holding two jade snakes in a hugging posture. There were many thumb-sized bone grains in front of the statue, and each bone grain was engraved with strange runes. These should be the sacrificial tablets of the Huta stronghold's ancestors. These bone grains were densely packed, and they floated between the arms and the jade snakes, as if they had really returned to Huta Great God's embrace. Below the statue, there was a small sacrificial table. The table wasn't empty, and besides a few flickering green candles, there was a furry thing lying lazily on the table. At this moment, the furry thing seemed to have been awakened by the noise. It poked its head out from the table, and it looked like a dog's head. However, as the dog's head poked out, a faint beam of light shot out from its mouth. As the light grew more and more sinister, wisps of blood-red light appeared in the air above the ancestral hall, and mournful cries could be heard. On top of the dog's head, the two sparkling eyes on its head swept across the soul cultivators, and a kind of fear that came from the soul cultivators' souls was born. Aside from a few old soul cultivators whose bodies were flashing with green light, the rest of the soul cultivators fell to the ground and bowed with trembling bodies. When Ji-Man saw that the dog had been awakened, she hurriedly bowed and began to chant some strange incantations. The black dog aimlessly glanced at the people kneeling before the offering table. Suddenly, its little nose wrinkled and its entire body trembled. With a whoosh, the black dog flew up from the offering table. Like a black lightning bolt, it rushed in front of the crowd. The people kneeling on the ground were like stones in a pond. They were so scared that they rolled around on the ground. It was as if they were extremely afraid of the black dog. However, to everyone's surprise, that black dog didn't pay attention to anyone. Instead, it obediently flew in front of Xiaohua, who was half lying on the ground. Woof 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 woof, a burst of joyful barks sounded. That black dog actually started to happily play around in the air. In the end, it actually landed on Xiaohua's shoulder, leaving everyone dumbstruck. Ji-Man looked at all of this in a daze. She knew that Ziming had already served this sacred beast for dozens of years. If she were to use Elder Wu's token in the ancestral hall, it would inevitably alarm the sacred beast. Perhaps it would disrupt her plans. However, she already had a plan and a plan to deal with it. But what she never expected was that the sacred beast was indeed alarmed. Moreover, it wasn't an ordinary alarm. The one who alarmed the sacred beast wasn't Ziming, but that mysterious Xiaohua. Ji-man could clearly feel the sacred beast's ecstasy and attachment. Zhang Xiaohua? Ji-man suddenly came to a realization. She once again looked at Xiaohua with an inconceivable gaze. This is the sword practitioner that the sacred beast is looking for. Zhang Xiaohua? Daddy. When the black dog landed on Xiaohua's shoulder, a voice emerged from the bottom of Xiaohua's heart. It made Xiaohua somewhat confused. But when the black dog's warm tongue licked his ear, Xiaohua's heart trembled. He hurriedly replied, You are Little Black. Daddy, Little Black replied. It happily leaped over Xiaohua's head and landed on his other shoulder. At this moment in the ancestral hall, everyone was stunned like clay statues. They forgot to fear and tremble. Even Ziming, who was extremely familiar with the sacred beast, was unable to react. Her thoughts were the same as Ji-man's. She didn't know how Xiaohua became the flying sword-wielding Zhang Xiaohua that the sacred beast was talking about. Little Black happily jumped a few times. Seeing that Xiaohua didn't react, it angrily whimpered a few times. It opened its mouth and with a ha sound, a white light flashed. It spat on the dark green light that was binding Xiaohua. The moment the light touched the white light, it immediately melted. Sacred beast, Ji-man hurriedly shouted. Immediately after, she uttered some incomprehensible shaman language, as if she was asking something. Who would have thought that at this moment, Little Black completely ignored Ji-man? It immediately flew up from Xiaohua's shoulder and barked randomly this. Ji-man hesitated. She didn't need to communicate with the sacred beast. She also knew that the sacred beast wanted her to release Xiaohua. But if she released Xiaohua, Ziming would naturally be released as well. Then, how would she repay Ziyan's revenge? Woof woof, Little Black urged again. It seemed that it was already somewhat anxious. Ji-man bit her lips tightly. The expression on her face changed several times. She was really somewhat unwilling. She finally made the decision. She was finally going to take revenge. But at this final stage, there was a variable that she couldn't resist. Could she let go? Kill? A trace of ominous light flashed through Ji-man's eyes. Chapter 29:16. However, the ferocious glint in her eyes disappeared in a flash. Ji-man did not dare to kill the saint beast even though she was confident. Because she wasn't confident and didn't dare to kill all the elders in the ancestral shrine. Moreover, she didn't dare to destroy the entire Huta stronghold's foundation. Is it wrong for me to avenge Luer? Huta God. Why is she so unfair to me? Ji-man clenched her fists and murmured to herself as warmth gushed out from her eyes. Ji-man, a gentle voice came from the palace door in the distance. Elder Wu. Ji-man sniffed and looked over, only to see a slightly dark and skinny young man walking over from there. This young man looked very ordinary, but his eyes were extremely bright, like the twinkling stars of the morning. Moreover, this young man walked slowly, step by step in the air. His figure was faintly discernible, and in the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Ji-man. Greetings, Elder Wu. Ji-man didn't dare to be negligent and bowed. Everyone in the ancestral shrine also bowed with Ji-man, and the respect in their eyes was even greater than when they saw Little Black. Woof 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 woof. Only Little Black continued to bark in the air, not afraid of this young man. Hee. Elder Wu had a warm smile on his face as he reached out his hand and patted Little Black's head. Don't be impatient, don't be impatient. Then, Elder Wu pointed his finger, and a green light that was almost invisible to the naked eye appeared from his hand, and landed on Xiaohua's body. The dozens of dark green pythons immediately disappeared. Immediately after, Old Wu made a grabbing motion with his hand, and the soul lock that bound Xiaohua also broke free from Xiaohua's body and landed in his hand. Finally, Old Wu frowned slightly, and with a flick of his right hand's middle finger, a ball of blood-red brilliance also flew out from Xiaohua's head and dissipated in the air. Xiaohua completely regained his freedom. He stood up from the ground and respectfully said, Junior Xiaohua of the Imperial Thunder Sect greets Senior. Xiaohua? You're not Zhang Xiaohua? Old Wu also seemed to be surprised as he looked at Xiaohe. At this moment, Xiaohe was very happy. He had already landed on Xiaohua's head and messed up Xiaohua's hair. Junior's name might be Zhang Xiaohua, but Junior's name is Xiaohua now. Xiaohua looked at Elder Wu's gentle expression and didn't hide anything, carefully replying. Oh, I see. Nodding his head, old Wu looked at Ziming, Fairy Hongxia and the rest. Finally he looked at Ji-man who had yet to get up and asked, Ji-man, please get up. What's going on? I beg Elder Wu to make the decision and seek justice for my dead lure. Ji-man refused to get up and said in a sorrowful voice. Ah, Ziyan. What's wrong? When did he return to Hu to great God's embrace? Elder Wu was also surprised and he hurriedly asked. Of course it was Ziming's doing. Ji-man said hatefully. Otherwise, how could I tie her up and bring her to the ancestral hall? How could I alarm the sacred beast? Elder Wu nodded his head slightly, glancing at Ziming. He didn't instruct Ji-man to release Ziming and the rest, but asked indifferently, have you investigated? Yes, I have investigated, and Ziming has admitted it himself. Ji-man replied. I got it. Please get up. Elder Wu's expression didn't change. Tell me the whole story. Now that we are in the ancestral hall, I may not have the authority to punish others. If Ziming really killed Ziyan, I will give Ziyan an explanation right here. Yes, I thank Elder Wu. Hearing that, Ji-man hurriedly got up and repeated the whole story. Then she pointed her finger downwards and said, the elders and guards were all present. I was afraid that there might be a mistake, so I brought them to the ancestral hall. If Elder Wu doesn't believe me, you can ask them. All right, Elder Wu nodded his head, looked at Xiaohua and asked, what Ji-man said, do you admit it? Xiaohua smiled and shook his head, replying, although most of what Ji-man said is true, she got it wrong. The one who set the trap is Ziyan, not Ziming. Furthermore, this Ziyan is definitely not the Lu, or that Ji-man spoke of. He is Lu, or who has been possessed by the devil. Ziming has solid evidence. Elder Wu only needs to take a look to know. Ah, Lu or has been possessed? This is impossible. Not only was Elder Wu stunned, even Ji-man turned pale with fright and denied it. Sigh, the devil's methods are getting more and more brilliant. Elder Wu was clearly starting to believe Xiaohua. With a sigh he said to Ji-man, release Ziming, this old man will question him. Ji-man asked in disbelief, Xiaohua, if Ziming has solid evidence, then previously at this point, Ji-man couldn't ask any further. She already understood that Ziming wouldn't give this evidence to her even if he had to risk his life. That was an extreme distrust of her. Ji-man's face paled slightly, and she released Ziming, Fairy Hongxia and the rest. Ziming ignored Ji-man, bowing towards Elder Wu and said, boy greets Elder Wu. It's been hard on you. Elder Wu waved his hand and said, tell me everything that happened. Yes. Ziming replied, and told Elder Wu everything that happened after he left the Back Earth stronghold. He even told Elder Wu about Master Qin Qin's death. In the end, Ziming stretched out his hand, and his index finger cut across his calf like a knife. With a flash of blood, the soul artifact that contained the devil's soul was taken out from his flesh, and he raised his hand to present it to Elder Wu. Seeing this soul artifact, Ji-man's face turned even paler. She already understood that Ziming was telling the truth. Ziyan was no longer Ziyan. The one who killed Ziyan was the devil in this soul artifact, and Ziming could even be said to have avenged Ziyan. Ji-man, do you want to see it or me? Elder Wu took the soul bead and instructed Ziming to heal his wounds, then asked Ji-man, Elder Wu, please see. Ji-man shook her head slightly. This concubine wants to avoid suspicion. All right, Elder Wu didn't decline, and his starry eyes stared at the soul bead. A strand of green crystal came out from between his eyebrows and entered the soul bead. Traces of blood red seeped out from the soul orb and entered Venerable Wu's forehead through the crystal thread. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Venerable Wu finally retrieved the crystal thread and looked at Ji-man with a complicated expression. Was this concubine wrong? Ji-man couldn't help but ask, how many devil's minions are there in the Back Earth stronghold? You were wrong. But it's good that you didn't make a big mistake, Elder Wu said lightly, and then his mouth moved a few times. Ah. Ji-man heard, and couldn't help but be surprised. Elder Wu's face was also gloomy. He threw the soul bead in his hand, and it landed in front of Blackie. Xiaohua opened his mouth slightly, and with a ha sound, a white light came out of his mouth and sprinkled on the soul bead. A pitch-black shadow let out a mournful cry, and was sucked into his stomach. After Blackie ate the devil's soul, he actually did the same thing as Goldie. He stretched his waist, and his blood-red tongue touched the corner of his mouth. Then he laid on Xiaohua's shoulder and seemed to be drowsy. Xiaohua looked at Blackie, and used his hand to stroke its smooth fur. He smiled and asked, "Elder Wu, this junior's Blackie. This junior wants to take it away." "Yes, although this is the sacred beast of our back-earth stronghold, it still came from the heavens. From the day it asked this old man to look for you, this old man knew that it would leave the back-earth stronghold." Elder Wu nodded slightly. "Moreover, the sacred beast is a sacred beast because it was bestowed by the heavens. The sacred beast's whereabouts are arranged by the great God. How can we, the people, decide for the sacred beast?" "Many thanks, Elder Wu." Xiaohua smiled and temporarily placed Blackie in his arms. "Farewell, sacred beast," Xiaohua said casually, but the elders of the back-earth stronghold did not dare to be negligent. Everyone knelt on the ground again. "Thank you, great God Hutu, for your grace." As if it heard everyone's kowtows, Blackie actually poked its little head out from Xiaohua's arms. With a ha sound, it spat out a white light, and then shrank back. "I've made you suffer." Elder Wu looked at Fairy Hongxia and the rest and said kindly. Fairy Hongxia and the rest hurriedly bowed. "This junior greets Elder Wu. This is nothing. As long as we can clear Miss Ziming's grievances, we are already satisfied." "Sigh, it's all because this old woman was too anxious and believed in slanderous words," Ji-Man also hurriedly said. Fairy Hongxia and the rest glanced at the calm Ziming and quickly bowed. This matter is too much of a coincidence, and Ji-Man is also concerned about her family. This junior can understand. Ji-Man looked at Ziming's expression and her heart sank. She knew that the family she had accumulated for dozens of years had been poured down like a torrential flood in less than a day. Ziming's heart had already built a strong dam, and no matter how hard she tried, it would be impossible for her to reach the same level as before. Sure enough, Ziming glanced at everyone and said calmly, "Boy knows that he is not good at expanding, but he is good at protecting what he has built. He has never put the safety of the people of Meng Mountains aside. Furthermore, I don't care how others look at Boy. Boy only does what he thinks is right. It doesn't matter if you understand or misunderstand. Once something has happened, then we can never go back to how we were before." Elder Wu smiled, and an indescribable charm immediately appeared on his ordinary-looking face. He pointed his finger and said, "Ziming is right, Ji-Man is also right. Everything that happened before today has turned into water. We can never go back to how we were before. A mistake is a mistake, and no amount of compensation can change what has been done wrong. Since we can admit our mistakes and never make the same mistake again, that is the right thing to do. How can we be completely right when we govern Wu Stockade? As long as we have the people in our hearts, we can handle things impartially, and we have a clear conscience. As for the mistakes that we can't go back to how we were before, let it be an eternal mistake. Let it be a lesson for us. Without the past, without the present, how can there be a future? Only when there is rain can there be a rainbow. Only then can we know the beauty of Meng Mountains. Huta Stockade is one of the 12 great stockades of Meng Mountains. How could we have gone through such a simple storm? If we, the descendants of the great god Hutu, are defeated by such a trivial matter, wouldn't we become a joke to the original Taoist Xiao of the country of Xi? Chapter 29:17. Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. Venerable Wu and Ji-Man had mentioned his name twice in a row. That Ji-Man was still fine, but she should have sensed the situation with them. Since Venerable Wu of Bailu's stronghold could mention the name Taoist Xiao, then Ji-Man could too. However, Venerable Wu was different. He had just returned from outside, and Ziming had told him that he was ordered by the Shaman King to go deep into Meng Mountains. How could he know so clearly? Thinking of Venerable Wu's situation, Xiaohua naturally thought of Xue Mingchao of Sword Domain. Since she could also mention his name, Although there was still some doubt in her tone, since she could think of it, how could the others not know? Since the sword cultivators knew, how could the cultivators of Dao sect not know? There is no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. Perhaps the current nascent soul masters already know Wu Ming's origin. Looks like I'll have to seek advice from Hanju about my Buddhist cultivation. I'll see how I can conceal it better. Everything in Huta Stronghold and Ming Mountains was arranged by the great hands of Huta Great God and the other 12 great gods. It was all to temper and sharpen us, the descendants of the great gods. Only after going through the hardships of Huta Stronghold today can we understand the value of family, trust, and selflessness. Only after going through the drought of Ming Mountains can we understand the importance of hard work and toil, and the importance of Ming Mountains to us. Venerable Wu saw Xiaohua frown and ignored him. He then said to Ziming and the others, all the disasters now have shown us that no matter if it's the demons, swordsmen, or cultivators, even the soul warriors and natives of Ming Mountains, they all have some unfathomable intentions. They always want to realize their own schemes and satisfy their own selfish desires. They treat the lives of billions of people in Ming Mountains as grass, and treat Ming Mountains as a chess piece. They even treat the world as their own slaughterhouse. This is something that we, the descendants of the 12 great gods, cannot tolerate. This destroys the tradition of our billions of people peacefully guarding Ming Mountains. Yes, we'll listen to Senior Shaman's instructions. When everyone heard this, they were all excited and cheered in unison. Even though there were still some sounds among these calls, and there were still some shaman language that Xiaohua and the others couldn't understand. Obviously, Grandmaster Wu's words were meant for Xiaohua and the others to hear. Then Grandmaster Wu spoke again, but this time, Xiaohua and the others couldn't understand the shaman language. Following Grandmaster Wu's orders, groups of guards were led out by the elders. In just a short while, only Grandmaster Wu Ji-man, Xiaohua and the others were left in the ancestral hall. The current Huta stronghold is in some trouble. I believe Taoist Master Xiao has already seen it. This old man was aware of this situation long ago, and has already made preparations. However, I never thought that the devil cultivator's attack would be so intense that even Ziyan's body would be possessed. It seems that this old man will be busy for a while in the coming days. Grandmaster Wu said to Xiaohua in a very amiable manner. Therefore, I would like to ask Taoist Xiao to stay in my back earth village for a few days. After this old man has finished dealing with the secular affairs, I will discuss with Taoist Xiao. No problem, Xiaohua smiled. Although this Grandmaster Wu looked very ordinary, but since he appeared in the ancestral hall, every action and word of his attracted everyone's gaze and attention. Furthermore, Grandmaster Wu's words were neither hot nor cold, and were extremely pleasant to the ears. His fairness and strictness were self-evident, which made Xiaohua's heart filled with admiration. Xiaohua naturally took this kind of senior's words to heart. He bowed and said, Junior and the others will listen to Senior's arrangements. Ji-man, follow this old man to the back earth palace. Grandmaster Wu nodded and ordered Ji-man. Ji-man also replied respectfully, yes, this concubine understands. Ziming, now that you have repaired the soul-falling lamp, and Ziya's matter has also been settled, rest for a day and then come to the back earth palace. Grandmaster Wu looked at Ziming, who was in a daze and looking straight at the ground, and said, Ziming's situation seemed to be very emotional about Grandmaster Wu's words, and he actually didn't hear Grandmaster Wu's order clearly. After Grandmaster Wu finished speaking, he suddenly understood and asked curiously as if he had just woken up from a dream. Boy, why are you going to the back earth palace? Ha ha ha, Grandmaster Wu laughed and didn't say another word. He raised his feet and walked away like a shadow. Ji-man looked at Ziming apologetically, and a trace of a bitter smile appeared on the corner of her mouth, and also walked out of the ancestral hall. Ziming looked at the backs of the two people leaving, and an extremely complicated expression appeared on his face. He opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. What should have happened had happened, and what should have been said had been said. It seemed that what happened before was different from before, but thinking carefully, what changed? What didn't change? Ziming. Xiaohua's voice sounded in Ziming's ears. Grandmaster Wu is right, Yesterday is yesterday, today is today, and tomorrow is tomorrow. You still have to think carefully. This concubine understands. It's easy to say, but when it comes to doing, how can it be so simple to truly understand? Ziming looked at Xiaohua with a bitter smile. Fairy Hongxia was originally dissatisfied with Ziming, but at this moment, she felt pity in her heart and said softly, "Sigh, life is always unpredictable, and the joys and sorrows of separation are the main taste. Miss Ziming, your heart must be strong." As she spoke, Fairy Hongxia also looked at Li Zongbao. Ever since Li Zongbao used the Netherworld mirror and didn't see Kai Zhuoxia's image, he hadn't said a word. Even when he was captured by G-Man, he didn't say a word, and didn't resist at all, as if he had lost his soul. Fairy Hongxia's words were meant for Li Zongbao to hear. Unfortunately, Li Zongbao still looked at the ground indifferently, and ignored her. "I owe Xiaohua at this moment." Ziming suddenly cried out, and took out the rejuvenation pill, and handed it to Xiaohua. "Quickly take the rejuvenation pill. Quickly replenish your life essence." "What?" Fairy Hongxia was also anxious and asked curiously, "Xiaohua, you? When did you?" However, Fairy Hongxia hesitated when she saw Xiaohua's face. She had seen Grandmaster Qin Qin's condition after she entered the soul-refining cave, and knew what it was like to have one's life essence damaged. At this moment, Xiaohua's face was glowing, and there wasn't a single wrinkle on his face. No matter how she looked at it, it didn't look like his life essence was damaged. "Is that so?" Xiaohua actually didn't feel anything. He was forced to do it, and his life was almost gone, so what was the point of wanting his life essence? Moreover, he was only able to use half of the cloud summoning rain spell before it was sealed by G-Man, and the green seal text was not completely released. As for whether this spell could damage his life essence, Xiaohua didn't know. Touching his smooth cheeks, he was a little dazed. "Using half of a spell. Can it damage my life essence?" Xiaohua thought for a while and asked. Of course, Ziming was a little anxious and urged, "Witchcraft is the essence of heaven and earth. How can we mortals use it? We can only rely on life essence to replenish the heaven and earth essence consumed by witchcraft. Not to mention using half of it. As long as it is used, it will be damaged." "But I don't feel anything." Xiaohua smacked his lips. "Why don't we wait a little longer? This rejuvenation pill is also quite precious." Ziming was about to cry, and stamped her feet. "Young Master Xiao, I'm not joking with you. The taboo power of my Ming Mountain's witchcraft is not something you know. That is the power of a great god, not the magic power of a cultivator, and not some spell formed by heaven and earth's spiritual energy." All right, seeing Ziming in a hurry, Xiaohua quickly caught the rejuvenation pill and said, "How about this? I'll take the rejuvenation pill first. I'll see when the life essence starts to be damaged, and when there is something wrong, I'll immediately take the rejuvenation pill. This way, I'll also know how powerful that witchcraft is, right?" "All right. Young Master Xiao can decide for yourself." Ziming helplessly shook her head, but a moment later, she thought of something and said in a low voice, "What was the witchcraft spell that young Master Xiao used just now? When did young Master cultivate it?" "This witchcraft spell. Even my Huta village's elder Wu can't use it." "It's a long story," Xiaohua said with a smile. "This is the spell evolved from my cloud summoning rain talisman, Without waiting for Xiaohua to finish, Ziming was shocked and said involuntarily, "This isn't this great god Xianming's rain summoning technique?" I don't know," Xiaohua said with a smile. "But I got it from somewhere in Ming country. This witchcraft spell can't attack, but young master risked his life to activate it. I'm afraid it's useless." Ziming sighed. Xiaohua said in all seriousness, "Even so, at that time, this Xiao couldn't just surrender without putting up a fight. It's all my fault for dragging young Master Xiao and the others into danger." Ziming blamed herself again. "I'm afraid G-Man will think that I leaked the secret of Ming Mountain." Hearing this, Xiaohua shook his head and said, "Ziming, Elder Wu's words are very good. You go back and reflect on it. I won't say anything." Xiao and the others came to Ming Mountain. "According to you soul cultivators, it was Huta Great God who sent us here. Even this witchcraft spell was instructed by Huta Great God. If it's related to you, it was Huta Great God who sent you to Sentry City and let you get to know me. All the cause and effect originated from Huta Great God. I understand. Ziming smiled slightly. Daoist Zhao's trip to Meng Mountain is very important to the people of Meng Mountain. Judging from Elder Wu's expression just now, it's far from the distress when the drought just started. I'm sure you already know how powerful Daoist Zhao is. Ai, that's right, this Zhao has a hard life. Xiao Hua shrugged his shoulders casually with a pitiful appearance. Ziming laughed. He was really happy now. Let's go. Fairy Hongxia's heart skipped a beat and she urged. Elder Wu has already asked Ziming to go to Huda Palace. It's also a chance for Ziming. Let's rest early and let Ziming have some peace. Ziming lowered his head, and Xiao Hua acted as if he didn't hear it. Xiao Mao said tactfully. That's right. I've been tortured by this old Baiji man. Even my mother's portrait is only half done. I still have to finish it while I'm free. Chapter 29:18. Young Master Xiao, please. Ziming lowered her head. Her ears were burning as she quickly walked in front of him. Her feelings for Xiao Hua were actually not that deep. It was only because no one was able to enter her eyes. Xiao Hua's temperament was completely different from the millions of Meng Mountain spirit warriors, and he did not have the slightest bit of flattery. That was why he immediately entered her heart. Today's experience, which could not be considered a lingering and frightening experience, had deepened her impression of him, making it somewhat hazy. This hazy feeling had always been a secret, and she did not want Fairy Hongxia to know about it. However, Ji-Man had pointed it out. Now that Fairy Hongxia was on guard, she naturally felt embarrassed. Oh right, Ziming, there is something that I feel is strange about. I would like to ask a few more questions. Xiao Hua spoke again at an inappropriate time, causing Fairy Hongxia to stare at him with a bit of anger and embarrassment. Young Master Xiao, please speak. Ziming lowered her head slightly and looked up slightly, asking in a low voice. Regarding Ziyan, I am somewhat puzzled. I have always wanted to ask about it. Xiao Hua did not care about this, and spoke out the doubts in his heart. Ziyan was possessed by a demon, so he did not fall. Perhaps his natal spirit tablet would not shatter. However, Hamba killed Ziyan, and Miss Ziming took away the demon's remnant soul. Does that mean that the natal spirit tablet would not shatter before the soul was destroyed? Why did Ji-Man not know about this? Why did she only make things difficult now? Oh, so this is what young Master Xiao is puzzled about. Ziming understood and smiled. That natal spirit tablet is only a magic of your Dao sect. There is nothing similar among Ming Mountain spirit cultivators. Oh, why not? If you had this item, you and Ji-Man, wouldn't there be so many misunderstandings? Xiao Hua asked in astonishment. Ziming's face was slightly pale. She said indifferently, if we had this item, the incident with Ziyi would not have happened. After thinking for a moment, Ziming said, I believe young Master Xiao already knows about the power of bloodline. It is the foundation of Meng Mountain spirit cultivators' spirit techniques. And I know a little. Xiao Hua nodded. Master Kuchin had already told him about this. Simply speaking, the power of bloodline is to use the power of heaven and earth through the inheritance of blood essence. The blood essence must contain the imprint of a soul warrior. Ziming said, although your Dao sect's Dharma spells don't talk about this, the natal spirit tablet that can be refined with blood essence should also belong to this category. A drop of blood essence isn't much to you Dao sect cultivators, but to us soul warriors, it's incomparably important. A soul warrior can use countless methods to use blood essence to cast spells on another soul warrior, and even take the life of that soul warrior. Therefore, it is impossible for us, the soul warriors of Meng Mountains, to use our own blood essence to craft some natal spirit tablet, and let others control our life and death. Actually, a simpler explanation would be that since the death of a Dao sect cultivator could cause the destruction of his natal spirit tablet, the destruction of his natal spirit tablet would definitely cause the death of a Dao sect cultivator. Your Dao sect's natal spirit tablet is the most important method that cultivation sects use to control their own disciples. It's not the concern for their own disciples that ordinary people think. Hee, let me say something unpleasant. If my Ming Mountains were to attack your Dao sect's 3 kingdoms, we don't even need to fight to the death. As long as we can control your Jade Archive Palace, we can completely control all of your cultivators. His hearing this, not only was Xiaohua dumbfounded, even Fairy Hongxia and the others sucked in a breath of cold air. Xiaohua even thought of the golden natal spirit tablet that he kept in the Jade Archive Palace. Dao sect cultivators are like locusts in the mortal world, desperately devouring the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, using everything in the world for their own use. Moreover, they plunder by hook or by crook, not caring about the needs and nourishment of heaven and earth. Today's abnormal weather in Ming Mountains, I'm afraid it's the result of your Dao sect's 3 kingdoms ignoring the heavenly Dao, right? Ziming sighed. It's a pity that you cultivators don't know about it at all. Moreover, you're so arrogant, thinking that you're the orthodox sect. The people of the world are also short-sighted. When they see how powerful the Dao sect's spells are, they naturally follow suit. Therefore, our soul cultivators have declined, and our Confucian cultivators have died out. At this point, Ziming saw that Xiaohua and the others' expressions were not good. She smiled and said, "This is what Venerable Wu said on a normal day. I'm just listening. Now that I'm telling you, young Master Xiao, you may not necessarily take it seriously." Hee, Xiaohua smiled bitterly. Looking at Fairy Hongxia and the others who were also thinking about something he didn't know how to answer. As they spoke, they walked out of the ancestral hall. With a glance, they saw the tall and sturdy Hitorigami standing on top of a boulder. The Hitorigami seemed to have received Venerable Wu's orders and didn't make a fuss. When it saw Xiao Mao, it roared and flew down from the boulder. The ground where its feet landed turned yellow. With a smile on his face, Xiao Mao stretched out his hand. The Hitorigami also stretched out its big hand. 2 fingers touched Xiao Mao's hand. Xiao Mao whispered a few words, and the Hitorigami laughed happily. Then its body glowed red, and it flew into the sky again. The Hitorigami is very powerful. Unfortunately, it still can't control its own strength. Xiao Mao looked regretfully at the place where the Hitorigami was standing. There were already some fine grains of sand, he said. Otherwise, with it following us, it could have saved us a lot of trouble. It's a pity that you can't bring it out of, Xiaohua said casually, but stopped halfway. Yes, why can't I bring it out of Million Ming Mountains? Yes, Million Ming Mountains is the Hitorigami's home. I won't let it leave. Moreover, if it goes to the cultivation world, who knows if it will attract the attention of nascent soul or spirit severing stage seniors? Xiao Mao said with a smile. He then took out the jade scroll in his hand and immersed his divine sense in it. Xiaohua raised his eyes and looked at the terrifying mountains on the left. He then looked at Fairy Hongxia and said, I'm afraid this is where the earliest Huta stockade was located? Yes, it is. Ziming waited for a moment. Seeing that Fairy Hongxia didn't say anything, she slowly said, according to the shaman canon, the earliest Huta stockade only had an ancestral temple. Moreover, the ancestral temple wasn't as big as it is now. Later, it slowly expanded. The palaces and other things were built around the ancestral temple. When the back mountain was full, this was another large-scale construction in my previous life. Previously, I've said that the buildings in the front mountain were heavily influenced by Confucian cultivation. It's already different from the back mountain. Confucian cultivation, what should it look like? Xiaohua narrowed his eyes. He thought of the turtle shell, the core, and the inscriptions on the armor. Outside the ancestral shrine, there were naturally guards standing guard. Ziming looked at the guards and gave a few orders. Then, she whispered to Xiaohua and the others, this concubine's resting place is near the ancestral shrine. This concubine won't see you off. Yes, Miss Ziming, please have some peace. Xiaohua didn't dare to say more. We'll also go back and meditate. When Elder Wu finishes dealing with the matters of Huta stockade, we'll meet again. All right. Ziming smiled and was about to turn around. Fairy Hongxia said again, Miss Ziming, you have to pay more attention to the matters of Huta stockade. After all, you're the next G-man. The task on your shoulders is very heavy. The people of Huta Stockade are all depending on you. Ziming's heart ached. She knew what Fairy Hongxia wanted to say. She smiled bitterly. Thank you, sister. I know what I'm doing. After saying that, she smiled at everyone. Then, she turned and walked along the wide mountain path towards the hall beside the ancestral temple. Her figure looked so lonely in the wind. Sai, let's go. Xiaohua sighed. Although it's G-Man and the Huta Stockade is above everyone else, the hardships involved can't be compared to the freedom of being a cultivator. Why? Do you want to share the burden? Fairy Hongxia asked with a smile that didn't look like a smile. Please don't, Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand. This Xiao has a lazy personality. This kind of thing should be left to the ambitious. It's just sharing the burden. Why don't you try? Fairy Hongxia didn't give up. I'm very eager. Xiaohua's face turned serious. This Xiao is a cultivator. How can I get involved in the affairs of millions of soul cultivators in Meng Mountain? Besides, this Xiao is a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect. If I want to share the burden, it's the affairs of my myriad Thunder Valley. How can I split myself here? Hehe, Xiaohua. What's that talisman of yours? It looks like a soul spell, right? Fairy Hongxia laughed. Besides, didn't you lose that Dharma body of yours? When you find it, let it come to Huta Stockade. Just treat it as if you're here. Isn't this the best of both worlds? Oh right, speaking of this. Xiaohua didn't seem to hear her. He raised his eyebrows and asked curiously, Hongxia, don't you think it's strange? Why can't we find Kai Zhuoxia's soul? I was the one who brought her corpse back with my own hands. Besides, didn't you say that you buried her? You buried her with your own hands. How could she still be alive? Fairy Hongxia's heart clenched. She nodded and said, That's right. Unless, the one who died wasn't elder sister? Hearing that he had successfully changed the topic, Xiaohua's heart relaxed. He looked at Li Zongbao and said, I saw Kai Zhuoxia's death with my own eyes. Besides, the corpse that I brought back was seen by the head of your Kai family. Everyone was certain that it was her. How can it not be her? Then where did the problem go wrong? Fairy Hongxia scratched her head. Unless elder sister really isn't dead? But at that time, she was completely lifeless and suffered such heavy injuries. Until the time of the burial, this concubine had repeatedly probed but didn't find anything strange. If there was even a trace of warmth, this concubine wouldn't have. Senior brother Li, what do you think? Xiaohua turned to look at Li Zongbao and asked. Back to Liyang. This Majia wants to see it with my own eyes. Li Zongbao raised his head. His eyes were red as he said word by word. Previously this Majia didn't dare to admit it and didn't dare to face it. But now that Zhuoxiao is still alive, this Majia has been enlightened. Since this Majia has her in my heart, I should admit it in front of the whole world. This way, even if she died, she would be able to rest in peace. Perhaps, she is waiting for this Majia to visit her. Chapter 29:19. This Xiaohua was slightly shocked. He was afraid that Li Zongbao had gone mad. He had seen Kai Zhuoxia's death with his own eyes. She was really dead and could not be alive. Since the Netherworld mirror could not find traces of Kai Zhuoxia's soul, there must be something wrong with the Netherworld mirror. Wasn't there a problem when he used it? It must be because Li Zongbao and Fairy Hongxia used it that something happened. Yes, I am also in a hurry to go back and see my sister's body. Who knows, a miracle might really happen. Fairy Hongxia's face was also filled with excitement. Li Zongbao also bit his lips and said, Yes, since Ziming wants to revive Zai, if Zhuoxia is not dead, there is no reason why she can't be revived. This Xiaohua smiled bitterly again. He looked at Xiao Mao, who was walking with his head down and seemed to be immersing his divine sense into the jade slip. He could not say anything. It seemed that only he, the culprit who broke the Netherworld mirror, did not get anything from the Netherworld mirror? Yes, what is that huge black silhouette? What is that series of sounds? Xiaohua was puzzled. Is it the Netherworld? Or the 9 Springs? Or the 10,000 Demon Realm? The Demon Realm? Xiaohua and the others returned to the quiet room with doubts in their hearts. However, This quiet room wasn't the enormous palace from before, and it was a small and exquisite room instead. Presently, only Xiaohua was seated cross-legged in this room, thinking about how so many things had happened in just one day and one night after leaving the quiet room. Xiaohua was almost exhausted. Most of his mental energy was on the sounds of the green seal text. If it was not a matter of life and death, even if he had started dozens of days ago, or even decades ago, Xiaohua did not believe that he would have made the most crucial progress in such a short period of time. Therefore, Xiaohua sat cross-legged quietly. He did not think or do anything. He simply meditated, and in a moment, he entered a dream. Although Xiaohua was asleep, the primordial spirit in Qingshan heaven was still waving the soul strands and trying different sounds. Strands of green light were constantly produced, and strange sounds were constantly emitted. Similar to the situation in Qingshan heaven, in Xiaohua's dream, there were also green lights fluttering. The green seal script that was born in the white bone previously turned into butterflies that gracefully entered the dream. Of course, whatever you think about in the day, you will also have dreams. The emergence of the green seal script inexplicably stimulated the primordial spirit and the soul strands. From the earliest formless green seal script to the later green seal script gradually emerged in an orderly manner. It actually became a kind of faint music that reverberated throughout the entire clear spirit heaven. When it was deep into the night, the energy of the outer realm Yuan star broke free from the confinement of the sun star and shot out from the starry night, enveloping Xiaohua within it. After the appearance of the outer realm Yuan star force, about the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Elder Wu flashed out of the sky like a ghost. His starry eyes were even brighter in the night, and after strands of green light flashed, he had a strange expression on his face. That expression seemed to have some understanding, but it was also astonishment. This astonishment seemed to have more confusion than understanding. Elder Wu softly muttered a few inaudible words of shaman language, then slightly shook his head, and his figure slowly disappeared again. Dream after sleeping for an unknown period of time, Xiaohua suddenly woke up. Cold sweat seeped out from his forehead, and all the green seal text in his dream came to an abrupt end. It was completely shattered by the inexplicable words of the pitch-black giant monster's outline. Sigh, Xiaohua looked left and right, and a bitter smile appeared on his face. He thought to himself, "Is this dream my family? Why do I care so much about it? But if it really wants to come, why is there no sign of it?" Humph, thinking of this, Xiaohua sneered again. Since nameless identity is going to be revealed, then the person who sealed my Naiwan palace will definitely appear. My amnesia must be related to them. The day when the truth comes to light is gradually approaching. Unfortunately, my nameless is only at the early nascent soul stage. My Naiwan palace and middle Dantian are sealed so tightly, it's definitely not the work of a nascent soul cultivator. If it's not a spirit-severing cultivator, then it's a void refinement cultivator, or even a body fusion cultivator. Damn it, this won't do. If I meet them now, I can only be a fish on the chopping block, not a knife. I have to think of a way. Thinking of this, Xiaohua suddenly stared blankly, as if he thought of something. He forcefully slapped his forehead with his hand and said, "Damn it, how could I forget? When Wuxia died, she died a cold death. But when I was in Liang's Kai family, didn't I use that strange willow branch to summon the soul? That broken willow branch is really strange. All the spiritual herbs in the space grow crazily, but this willow branch hasn't changed at all after so many years." Thinking of this, Xiaohua's mind entered the space, and from the edge of the yin-yang pool, he took out the willow branch again. Xiaohua's gaze swept over it, and he bitterly smiled, but he saw that the willow branch was still abnormally dry, and the dried surface was dotted with yellow spots, no different from before. Especially the 9th-grade willow leaf. It didn't increase or decrease, and even the withered yellow lines on the willow leaf didn't change at all. In the end, is this thing causing trouble again? Xiaohua lost confidence, but from the surface, this thing was just an ordinary willow branch. If it wasn't for the fact that it didn't change in Xiaohua's space, and if it wasn't for the fact that Xiaohua spent dozens of high-grade spirit stones to buy this treasure, Xiaohua would have thrown this willow branch away long ago. right? Maybe it's useful? Xiao Hua's eyes turned a few times, and he secretly said, "This Ho-Tu village's elder Wu is obviously an expert. His cultivation is simply unfathomable. Moreover, shamans have always been proficient in soul techniques. If this thing can protect Wuxia's soul, it's obviously one of the few powerful things in the world. Even more powerful than the soul-falling lamp. Elder Wu should know. How about?" However, Xiao Hua only had this thought, and he immediately extinguished it, and hurriedly sent the willow branch back into the space, and still stuck it in the yin-yang pool. There are many treasures in the world, and Xiao Hua didn't know how many of them can protect the soul, but Xiao Hua knew. Elder Wu calmly dealt with the dispute between Ji-Man and Ziming, and easily cleared the Ho-Tu village of the demon invasion. That was because Elder Wu had absolute control over the Ho-Tu village. In this control, he wouldn't care too much about any unforeseen events. However, if this willow branch entered Elder Wu's eyes, and if it exceeded what Elder Wu could bear, would Elder Wu become greedy? Xiao Hua boasted that he already had a lot of rare treasures, but when he saw an excellent magical treasure, his heart would still itch. Xiao Hua himself was like this. What about others? Xiao Hua couldn't guarantee that Elder Wu wouldn't make other moves. Forget it. This kind of treasure is related to life and death. It's better for this young master to know. Xiao Hua thought to himself, and then raised his eyes to look outside the quiet room. At this moment, the quiet room had just lit up, as if another day had come. It's already been dozens of days, right? Elder Wu still hasn't come. I'm afraid the Ho-Tu village's crisis is really serious this time. Sigh, this devil dweller is really everywhere. I don't know if these demons are related to Yin Meng and the others. Suddenly, Xiao Hua felt that the millions of Meng mountains blocking the northwest side of the Xiaoyu continent was really disgusting, but now he felt that it was incomparably cute. If it weren't for the millions of Meng mountains soul cultivators, perhaps Zhang Qingxiao would have already been captured by Lord Ji Peng, right? I better hurry up and cultivate. When Xiao Hua thought of Lord Ji Peng, his heart trembled again. He knew that this kind of cruel and merciless demon general would appear in front of him sooner or later. After such a long period of recovery, under the miraculous effect of the Sun Shroud art, Xiao Hua's burned divine sense had recovered. Moreover, this divine sense had become even more tenacious, thick, and enormous. Although it couldn't be compared to the Buddhist sense, Xiao Hua had a feeling that as long as he kept cultivating the Sun Shroud art and strengthening his mind, this divine sense would soon surpass the Buddhist sense. While sighing with emotion at the miraculous secret technique given by Jiuxia, Xiao Hua once again erased Jiuxia's face from his mind, and sent his mind into the mysterious dark cloud. At this moment, the mysterious dark cloud was different from before. In the short period of time that Xiao Hua had controlled the green seal text, some strange runes had appeared outside the mysterious dark cloud. These runes were faintly floating outside the dark cloud, appearing and disappearing. Every time a rune appeared, a faint green glow would flash. This green glow would pass from one rune to another, and then disappear along with the disappearance of the rune. When another rune appeared, the green light would appear again. Slowly, this green light ran through the entire surface of the mysterious dark cloud, and those strange runes also gradually covered the entire mysterious dark cloud. Xiao Hua had always been interested in runes. Seeing that it was so strange, he had already focused his mind on these runes. However, these runes either suddenly disappeared when they came into contact with his mind, or they disappeared before his mind could even approach them. Xiao Hua's mind was unable to capture them. When Xiao Hua coincidentally encountered a newly formed rune, a kind of boundless and boundless feeling immediately came from that rune. Compared to this boundless feeling, Xiao Hua's mind was like a grain of sand in the vast ocean, insignificant and undetectable. See, Xiao Hua suddenly realized. This might be the heavenly pattern earth deed that protects the soul. Immediately, Xiao Hua's greedy thoughts appeared again. Damn it, if I can comprehend this heavenly pattern earth deed, then how good would that be? Unfortunately, Xiao Hua had only encountered it for a moment, and after that he didn't have anything else. Even if he wanted to encounter it again, it was impossible. Opportunity, Xiao Hua understood that it was impossible, and regretfully entered the mysterious dark cloud. The moment Xiaohua's mind entered, the heavenly pattern earth deed suddenly flashed outside the mysterious dark cloud, as if it wanted to resist. When it lightly touched Xiaohua's mind again, that flash was extinguished, and the heavenly pattern earth deed returned to its previous state of flickering. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.